Okay, let's take roll call, shall we?
Okay.
All right. Okay, Phil. You here? Phil, you're on. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Jerry Lee. Present?
Present.
Okay. Mario.
Present.
Okay, Donna.
Present.
And Stephen. Where are you?
Here, but I'm in the car,
Yeah.
so I
Okay.
should be back to the computer closer to 8.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me get my video on. Okay, great. All right, Stephen, no problem. I'm sorry. Let's see. Time of the meeting is 7:38. And we're at the agenda item of approval of agenda. Are we having any changes to the agenda?
This is Jerry Lee. I would like to move the item about the redevelopment on Strathmore Avenue to action item, because I would like to just get a sense of the council to support the mayor's testimony at the upcoming hearings.
I didn't say anything about I'm testifying.
Well, for the town's testimony, we'll say that.
Yeah,
so if the town is to submit testimony, I just want to make sure that we're in agreement on the key points. So I thought I might need to move that to action.
You don't have to. We've never done that before. And we've had
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So if we're comfortable, then I'm okay leaving it as informational, and I'll just go over what the key points are.
Sure. We've had other council members who have testified before, so we haven't had a vote on that. So you're clear to go.
I'm fine leaving it as is if everyone else is.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry Lee. I do have a request. I'd like to enter a new item under new business, and it's about the county's redistricting that is involving the town of Garrett Park, town of Kensington, Chevy Chase View, and Tacoma Park. So I'd like to just bring that up to everybody and talk a little bit about that under a new business item. Are people okay with that?
Fine by me.
Yes,
Fine by me. That's
Fine.
fine, Karen.
Okay. Is there any other business item? I'm sorry, other agenda item, sorry.
Yes, I wanted to see about getting a sense of the council regarding the use of FlexiPay for certain sidewalks.
Okay. Where do you want that?
I mean, I can put it under my report, or I can do it as new business. If we feel it needs to be as new business.
Probably not new business because it's come up before. So do you want to keep it under updates?
I can just keep it under updates then, sure.
Okay, that's fine. Not just that, it was the route too. I think we just wanted to make sure we're not going to go against a curb or.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that stays. So the only thing being changed here is really a new business item to be added. Right. Okay, is everybody in favor? Let me hear if there isn't anybody in favor. Will you please speak up? Okay, that sounds like cricket. So everybody's in favor. Let me just hear a big yay.
Yay.
Okay.
Yay.
Oh, thank you. Okay. The agenda is approved as amended with that new item. Okay. Okay, we're now on to approval of minutes, and it's 7:42. Let me take one quick moment to thank Phil for running the meeting last month while I was out. Appreciate it very much, and everybody's efforts as well, helping him along there. So thank you, Phil.
Welcome.
Okay, are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, if
I
I
had one. I think it was mentioned in there that that there would be a vote on the sidewalk, something to that effect in the last month. But I think since we're covering it as a part of the update, like it would be misleading to have go in the archive saying there's gonna be a vote, and if somebody looked in for a vote in the future and found that there wasn't one, it was kind of a discussion item. I feel like it's a mismatch. I'd suggest taking that line out. I don't think it's necessary now.
I don't know. How do you feel about that, Andrea? I think that was in the minute. If that was said, you would keep that in, but you could adjust for that in today's meeting and reflect it in the minutes of tonight. So I defer to Andrea. Andrea, if you know the rules better there.
Yeah, I
think-
mean, I think you could handle it either way. I think one alternative would be to just say the item will be discussed at the November council meeting, since it's still sort of in keeping with, you know, that this will be talked about at the next council meeting. Or we could,
That would
I'm
work.
sorry, go ahead.
It was just a slight adjustment to it. I mean, if we were going to talk about all the things that were said in the meeting that weren't recorded in the minutes, it would be infinity. So I like your idea there, Andrea, just make it where it say it would be further discussed next meeting.
Yeah.
If everybody else is okay with that.
Well, let me ask Phil, you ran the meeting. Are you okay with that, Phil?
Fine with that. That works. for me.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's strike that. Can we highlight where that is, please?
Believe it's-
That is under,
I think it's not strike. Andrea's just gonna edit it. She's gonna change it.
yeah, so on Waverly and Oxford sidewalks, under the item
Mhm.
underneath town updates, second page.
Yeah, you have this item will be voted on. Okay.
Yeah,
What are you going to
and-
write? How are you going to say that?
This item will be discussed at the November council meeting. I think it still fits with the spirit that it will be brought up at the next meeting.
Okay. Any other changes? Okay. Everybody in favor with that change, just say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
And thank you.
Aye.
Anybody not in favor, just say something. Okay. Sounds like approved with changes. Thank you. Okay. 7:45. Are there any presentations by residents?
I have one inquiry about the
Yep. Who-
about the last item. I'm one of the people who was perplexed by,
I'm sorry, hold on a minute. For the
No.
sake of the recording, Chris, since I know
Oh,
it's your
okay.
voice, can
Chris
you go
Keller.
ahead? Thank you. Yeah.
Chris Keller, Claremont Place. I was one of the people who was perplexed by the apparent discrepancy between the October minutes and the November agenda. And I received an email a few hours ago from Phil saying there is going to be a vote tonight on the Oxford Waverly sidewalks. But I'm still unclear. Is that the case?
Would be a sense of the council regarding, do we want to pursue flexi pay or not? And do we want to make any changes to the routing? We'll obviously need to provide updated documents at the end of the day. But we wanted to discuss the updated routing and flexi pay. So
Okay, so that will be an action item to obtain a vote of the sense of the council.
No, it's not an action item. I think Phil said it didn't have to be. He was just going to get a sense of the council. We've already approved the work to replace and repair these sidewalks. That's already been approved in the budget. So it's more of just getting a sense from the council, which I had asked a couple months before about whether there was to be a change in the existing sidewalks, the route of the existing sidewalks, and if you had wanted to change, if the council had wanted to change the material from concrete to something else like FlexiPave. So it's just to get a sense of that. We already have budget comparisons of cost.
Is,
And it's either to just, I think we're getting off track on this because this was going to be under your update, Phil. So I'm going to stop there. So just for clarity, no, there's not an action to vote. It's a sense of the council, right? Is that what I understood, Phil?
that's the way I would do it. I basically, I basically made a mistake in what I had said in terms of the actually having a vote on it per se, because we don't have enough information to do a vote right now. So once we get that information, we can go forward. But for now, it was basically to understand about the material. So, and I'll can discuss it more when I get to my report.
Okay. Is there anybody else who has any presentation, any other resident?
Hi,
Hi,
Steve
Stephen.
Welker,
Yes.
Steve Welker from Weymouth Street. And
Okay.
real quick, I just wanted to bring up something on Weymouth Street. I've been talking to a lot of neighbors. I think there's a lot of support for this, but I'm not really sure how to go about it. We want, or I think we want 2 speed bumps on our street. I've been told by other people, if I get a signed letter from most of the neighbors and give it to the town or something, that's a good way to go. I'm happy to hear what you guys think is the best way to go about this, but a lot of young kids on our street, and we get a lot of people driving, thinking they're going to Parkside, turning around angrily and leaving Parkside. Delivery drivers speeding through, and even myself, I am guilty. Sometimes I find myself absentmindedly driving too fast on that street, and I think there's a majority support for it. But I'm happy to, go knocking on doors and getting a letter, and that's it. I just wanted to bring that up. Don't know who wants to pursue that or whatever, but thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. I'd like to see whether we can address, let me just tell you quickly. So it's sort of out of character for this item to do this, but in the past, when we put in some new speed bumps, like we did on Rokeby, the person who really led the effort did get a petition to see who would agree and who wouldn't. And then that was brought into the council, into the town office, and that decision was made. So I would start there with a petition. Okay.
Thank you. I will do that.
All right. Thanks. Okay. All right. Any other residents who want to make a presentation? Okay. 7:50. Let's go on for action item. Andrea, this is for, did I hear something? No, some squeaks. Okay. October, I'm sorry, the ordinance for 2022 mid-year budget corrections. How about you lead that off, Andrea?
Okay, give me just a second. I am going to try to share my screen, which can be complicated when I'm doing 3 different things, but let me see if I can figure this out in a way. Okay, there we go. You should be seeing a budget. Are you seeing a budget?
Yeah, we are. It'd be nice if you could make that bigger. Is there any way to make that screen bigger? And then can you push your menu, top of your menu of your screen up, and then drag it the bottom down to make it larger?
It's not. It's in a web page, which might be why.
Okay. Well, I have paper in front of me.
Okay, so I will start this off. Give me just a minute. Let me get my minutes back. Okay. All right. So mid-year budget adjustment. And I actually didn't write down, I believe we adopted this in May. Does that sound right? Kaki, do you remember, council members?
Yes, that would be correct. It was in May.
I should actually have May on there for the budget column. I'll add that in. So the version that you're looking at, just starting at the top, this is based on September actuals. And the reason for this is it's timing with when the previous month closes and when we're able to close those books and what report is available when I'm developing the budget or the mid-year budget. So the town manager report, the monthly financial report, shows the October monthly financial report, but this is based on September just because of the timing of it all. So it's a month behind, if you will. So that's, I think, important context. It's always tricky when our meeting is on the 8th of the month, getting that financial report done in time. So that's also just sort of an additional factor there, just to give that context. So the main purpose is to reallocate the carryover and to tweak line items where it's needed. And starting off with the revenue page, a lot of the revenue items are mostly unchanged to adjust line items upwards or where actual or anticipated revenue changed. But if council wants to adjust different items, obviously that's something that that you all can do. I would just caution that local governments have a requirement to make sure that we have revenues that cover our expenses. We cannot run a deficit. And so it's always a balance. It's always a balance because you don't want to be caught without enough revenues to cover expenses. So with that, I'll just start with where the changes were made. And then council members, if you want to stop me to talk about an item, please do. And then at the end of revenues, I'll also ask about if there's other questions, just sort of overall.
Hey, Andrea, real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the text box. Steve was saying maybe if you hit F11, it'll expand yours to make it a full screen on your screen.
I don't have an F11.
Three little bars that are next to the 6, 7.
Yeah. Hit that.
Hit that thingy.
Aha.
And then you
Thank
can
you.
expand more.
Perfect. Can you see this on your end for those?
I see it fine, but just
Okay.
See it, it's just smaller screen, that's
okay.
all.
Okay. And if any of you want to pull this up at home, this is on the website on the homepage that has the Zoom meeting info, also has this attachment. Okay, so under revenue, the first change is the carryover. So this is accounting for the actual carryover. So we budgeted for 70,000. We knew that would be low, but the actual carryover was is 480. So this is to account for the carryover in the budget document. Then scrolling down for line 3, line 3.1, this is highway user revenue, and this estimate, so our estimate was based on an earlier estimate. This estimate is based on a September 2021 estimate. So this is an updated estimate that this is based on for line 3.1. Line 3.2, this is based on actuals, which is a little confusing, but this is why I mentioned the October report difference. So we've now received our revenue for revenue sharing tax duplication. And so this is based on the actual amount that we've received. And then this is also based on our Montgomery County or Montgomery Municipal Cable payment annualized. So that's 3.1 and 3.2. And then obviously this is small, but since I was in here making changes already, for 5.2.3 for the swimming pool, adjusted that upwards by $1 so that everything sort of matches there. Before I go on, Kaki, do you have anything you want to add actually first?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do any council members have any questions on any of the revenue items? Or any changes or any discussion you'd like to have?
not yet, Andrea.
Andrea, I know we adopted it in the annual budget, but I am noticing it is that we have approximately $100,000 less revenue from income tax anticipated in FY22 than our actuals from FY 2021, and I wondered what the basis was for that, and should we be considering aligning that more closely?
Yeah, I think that, just thinking about the timing of when this budget was adopted and what we knew at that time, I think that's one sort of piece of it. I think another piece of this is, let me see if I have the specific calculation on here. You could adjust it upwards. I know that one of our nearby communities, and I'm trying to remember if it was income or if it was property, but I think it was income, that in 2020 that they had some residents that moved out that were big contributors to their income tax line item, and that created some budget challenges for them. So it's always a balance, but I think that's something for you all to consider if you want to bring it closer to FY21 revenue, if we sort of feel like things have stabilized in terms of, either residents moving in, residents moving out, and faith that this number would stay roughly the same, or with the economy. And this is one, Khaki, that I think was sort of all over the place from the state, if I remember right, that they expected it to be significantly lower.
Right.
FY21 had a big payment that they didn't expect, but then they thought the fall payment for FY22 would be lower as a result, I think was a piece of it.
That's true. That's right. And we had some major, like you mentioned, property owners or, residents in the state that had, really huge incomes that were being changed.
And I think for income tax too, it's challenging. I was trying to look this up before the meeting, but I think that there is a May or June payment for income tax. So it's tricky because if you have it too high, you don't have a lot of time to make up for it if you don't get the revenue that you're anticipating. So I fully recognize we don't want to have $480,000 of carryover, but you really, really don't want to come up short also. So there's, the balance is in there for you all to decide. And it's just the introduction too, right? So it may be something that.
Right. We can keep going because I think, we don't have to make a decision now. I just wanted to make sure I understood that better.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions on revenue? Okay. Scroll down. All right, so for operations, so there was a little over 132,000 added to operations. This is mostly to account for either unforeseen expenses or new expenses. And the majority of the items that are in here are something that council will discuss at the next agenda item or future agenda item here, relating to my leaving and sort of what the plan is for going forward. And then as a result, what budget items need to be changed related to that. So for, well, first of all, also for items 11.2.1 through 11.2.4, those should have been collapsed. So we show those on the monthly report, but when we adopt the budget, we don't adopt it at the sub level, like that's shown here. So that was a mistake on my part. So for the adoption, those should be collapsed by then, and I'll make changes to whatever comes up tonight, Khaki, so that
Okay.
that's in there. And I have a note here to myself to do that. So for the first item here, that 11.2.2,
That's your subtotal of your 11.2
yeah,
and 11.2.3.
Yep, so for 11.2.2, this is where we have billed our contract support for the town office. So this is contract office assistant. This is also support services contract for professional services. So we had talked about things like the budget or a code update, town communications, or other expert resources. This is where I parked some money if the town wants to use a recruitment firm for my the new town manager position. And I included 30,000 for that because it was 25,000 3 years ago. So just to add some additional funding. And then the other item that I included was I put in $70,000 for the ARPA shared program manager contract position. That is basically a placeholder amount because that will really depend on how many towns go in together on this shared position and what's the rate that everybody decides based on what kinds of responsibilities that person will be working on. So if you, in other words, if you only have 40 hours in a week and there's 3 towns sharing this person versus 4 towns sharing this person, there's a different number of hours that would be available to us. So the 70,000 I hope is high, but I don't know until it all kind of till it all shakes out, or you wouldn't know until it all kind of shakes out. I don't want to get too off topic, but that MOU is being developed right now by our attorney, so that should come to you all for review sometime soon. At any rate, if you hired somebody to manage this, there's money in there for that, regardless of the mechanism of how that happens.
And that is under the line item 11.2.2?
Yeah, it's under 11.2.2, and it could be under 11.4.
That's where I'd put it.
Yeah, and for the balance I was trying to strike here was that I think the recruitment firm was under 11.4 the last time, because I vaguely recall frequent questions on that line item and why it was running so high.
Yeah.
But also
probably where I'd put it too.
Yeah, but because we also have a number of positions that are contract office support that are under 11.2, I had it under 11.2, but I think you could put it in either spot. I think it'd be appropriate in either spot.
Yeah, I think those both should go under 11.4.
Andrea, I have a question. Has the town received funding already for the ARPA grants?
Yes, it's been received.
So why isn't that showing up under revenue?
Yeah, and Kaki, you might understand this better than I do. I was asking Mary about this earlier, but it wouldn't show on our, it wouldn't show up until we begin expending the money, because the revenue would be shown to match the expenses. And we wouldn't, like, if we were going to budget for it in FY22, we don't know how much of that money we would spend, so we wouldn't really know how much we would budget for. So it's similar to how we handled the sidewalks.
But if we're going to budget for an ARPA program manager that we would pay for out of the ARPA grant, shouldn't we put an equal amount of revenue then in to cover that budget line item?
Actually, that's a good point.
If I may, I think it's more along the lines of, while I think it wouldn't make sense for the ARPA program manager to be listed, the funds themselves would be considered like a grant, if you will. So until you receive them, you don't know how much it is that you're going to be spending.
Both of your point, though, I think that it's confusing probably to even have it up here, because maybe it should be in a below, the way that we did SRTS, it would be sort of a below the line. Do you know what I mean, Kaki?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that as we did with the SRTS, you know, it's we have to seek the reimbursement.
Yep.
So we spend it and then we seek reimbursement, and that's kind of what we did with grant.
You're right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I need to pull that out. So that would be, that reduces this by
yeah, I'd put that in a separate category then. Yeah, I'd be, you know, make that like we did with SRTS, Andrea, with a, you know, an ARPA sub account, if you will. Okay. And one of those expenditures right off the bat will be what we provide to the other municipality who's actually going to have the contract with the program assistant. We're not hiring that person. We're paying into that.
Every town would have and would be billed individually by
Right.
the contractor. Yeah.
Right, right. So it's, yeah, definitely
Okay.
make that separate.
So I'm not sure how to do this in such a way that sort of satisfies the showing revenue, not showing it on the budget because we don't know how much to budget for it, and it wouldn't show on a monthly report until we have actual expenses, but maybe it would be a line item with nothing, with no amount listed there for now then.
Is it possible to put like if you're working in Excel, would be a separate tab, if you will, for the
Yeah.
project?
Yeah, I mean, that will also have to be.
Yeah, we did that. We've received the first tranche though,
Yeah.
right? How much was
Yeah.
that?
516 maybe.
I would list that under revenue as financial assistance.
I think it's
For-
different. I think it's different. That's different than how we've done it.
Now, when we had the MOUs and so forth for SRTS grants, we listed that.
Okay.
That's what we would want to do here. We'd list it as a separate
Mhm.
account. And then, for ARPA, first tranche, you list it. And then on the operations side of the house under ARPA, because everything else we did actually went onto the capital for expenditures, right?
Right.
But
yeah.
in this case, this is an operational expense for the program assistance. So
Right.
we
It
could have a
pot-
subline.
It could potentially have capital also, though.
Yes, and so we'd have that there as well. And so
Okay.
for right now, see, I wouldn't, don't include that in your net operating. Okay,
Right.
because it's a separate accounting line totally, the audit firm will treat that totally different than
Yeah.
our regular stream. So when we get to where we have something for capital, we'll create, the capital account as
Yep.
well for ARPA.
Yep. Okay.
So it's going to look a little different, Andrea,
Okay.
for this operation budget table.
Yeah.
It'll
Okay.
totally be outside of it.
Okay. Got it.
And like Donna said, I mean, you could actually just create a separate, although at some point we may end up needing to have that shown on the capital side. So
Right.
we may want to still keep it here. I was thinking create a whole different table, but I don't think we want to do that yet. Not
Okay.
yet. Not until we see how this is shaking out.
Okay.
But to that point, we may not be able to spend the entire
Right.
amount. And if
Right.
we can't, then how do you get rid of it, if you will?
Yeah.
Because you'll end up
Right.
with a-
Well, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interject, Phil, but your point's right. And that's why I asked about the tranches. I think we're safe with one tranche. I wasn't going to say that we put down $1 million. I would just list the first tranche, unless you think that's even too optimistic.
I mean, barring Donna's report, we don't know what we can really spend it on right now. We've kind of only have a few narrow things that I'm aware of.
It's actually a lot more broad. Donna can probably go into that at some other time, but I sat in on a mayor's meeting with Ron Balt, and just the amount of things that you can do with this is quite positive.
I think it depends if you have lost revenue though, or not. I think that's part of the.
That's too, that's in it as well.
Yeah.
Mhm. But we know the stormwater is definitely one in
Mhm.
there.
Actually, just to, not to preempt my own talking points, but it's much broader than I think most people even anticipate. And I'd be happy to talk to about it a little bit later.
So I think, are we okay to just have the first tranche listed? Or do you want to wait and get a little more information and then put it in for the adoption? We could.
Could be
take the next-
stricken at the adoption, right? So
What'd you say?
it could be
Stephen?
taken out at the adoption if it has to be, right? Because it comes back up next month.
That too. Could do it either way, right? Keep it out now, put it in at adoption, or put it in now, leave it in or take it out. at
Or adjust
adoption.
it.
Yeah, right.
Just put it in and we'll adjust if necessary at the adoption point, right?
Yeah. And you know, we always can still adjust negatively. I mean, we can show a negative if we had to down the road, that we're not using it all, and we have a footnote. We note it. Because it's not money in our bank, folks. It's really just for allowing us to see that if we expend, we're expending it against that. It's our town money that expends, then we get reimbursed. The same idea as the SRTS. Right, Andrea?
Well, I mean, we received it already, so it's a little different.
Is it in our account?
Yeah, it's in our accounts. You can even make money off the interest from it. It's a very
Oh,
different.
then I apologize. Okay, now that's, yeah, we need to list it.
Yeah, okay, I didn't understand.
Yeah, I thought we were treating it as a grant, financial
think
assistance from the,
This question though about could we really spend all that in FY22, I think is
Yeah.
still a,
but that's okay, because we didn't do that even with SRTS. You know, we kept that money on the books for a while, on the budget table, so.
If you put it as capital, we don't have to worry about it because it basically can extend forever, I guess.
yeah, for the labor, that might be a little weird to have it coming out of capital though. I don't know.
Which is why I was suggesting to perhaps have it as just a separate budget or sub-budget altogether because of
Yeah.
those different parts and pieces that are moving. And yeah, well, you can earn from the interest. At the end of the day, it is a kind of a use it or lose it kind of situation.
Okay, so we'll show it on there for now, first tranche, and you all will decide at the adoption. Have a decision point there. Okay. So moving on then, and I will obviously pull out that 70,000. So there's 70,000 to be redistributed, reallocated. The next line item then would be that parking enforcement. I included this just in case. I know that when we developed the budget that we're not really sure what the year ahead would look like, but it does seem like things are starting to open back up again. So just to give some flexibility there, included 6,000. I didn't include anything for revenue since I still think that's somewhat unknown. And there's a lot of discussion at council about that. The other item, 11.5, that's simply just to match based on actuals. See, scrolling down. For item 13.1 for Penn Place. This is just increased up from, there was 5,000 in for maintenance improvements to former tenant spaces. I bumped this up to 10,000. This is a little bit of the art part of this on what would be capital expenses and what would be operations expenses, but just wanting to have some additional funds in here if it's needed, depending on what regardless of what the outcome of the space study is, that some of those spaces have been sort of neglected for a little bit and need a little bit of love. So just putting in a little bit more money for those spaces. For item 13.2 for town hall, this is adding in additional money as well for weekly cleaning costs. So some of the stuff we are reimbursed for, but we still have expenses that we have to pay before we get reimbursed for it. So putting in for the weekly cleaning of town hall. I think that's also something that the town may want to consider continuing to contract out going forward. I don't know that that's a great use of maintenance staff's time to clean town hall when there's other things that are sort of more specific to their skill set rather than cleaning town hall.
Good point.
for item 13.6, so this is, there were repairs to 2 of the trucks and to another piece of equipment that burnt through this line item pretty quickly. So this is sort of an unanticipated expense. So just wanting to kind of bump that line item back up again in case there will be other repairs that need to be made. So just making sure that there's enough budget to be able to do that. 14.2 trash. This corresponds with the line item 4.0. This is the only, well, this year and next year, I guess, they will not match exactly because the timeline that we have to report to the county on what our rate is for garbage, yard waste recycling per household, that timeline, that letter needed to be sent to the county before our contract was signed with the new contract with our vendor. So this is to reflect that rate increased as of October 1. And so that's the difference. That's to make up for that difference. And I have, the cost for quarter 1 and then the cost for quarters 2, 3, and 4 of the fiscal year. And the town will receive that revenue from the county, but the town will receive it in FY23. So that's what that's all about. For line 15.0, this is based on actuals. Yeah, this is our very last payment for the bond will be $62,356. So this is just sort of getting that in there correctly. I had asked, I think we're still waiting to hear back about whether can we make this payment early? Do we save anything on interest? Because for us, if it's budgeted and we have to make this bond payment anyway, is it possible to pay it off now? So we'll see what we hear back on that as well.
Good thinking. And that'll be great. That'll be the last payment. That'll be super.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
Kaki,
good.
anything else you want to add here for any of these operating expenses?
I have one just because once I understand a little bit more about your administrative contract services up here, what, oh, I can't move that. I was trying to move the screen. Sorry. Up under 11.2.2. Yeah. If we're taking 70,000 out of that, I guess my thought is that we still might need to beef that up in case of any interim.
Right.
Even if, we have already annualized your salary still in this budget, it's still possible there'd be be beneficial to have an overlap actually. So I would think so. You might want to beef that up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's your balance in there now after you've taken the 70? You have just 30 sitting in there right now, 30 plus extra?
Yeah, I'd be adding 30. Yeah, adding 30 extra.
Well, I have what would you recommend to put in?
Andrea, wait a minute. I thought that you were implying that 11.2, the additional $106,000 was to cover for the interim of your position being vacated.
It's for the recruitment firm. So the 30,000 would be for the recruitment firm.
Okay. Well, what's the balance of the 106,000 for then?
Then so take the 6 out of it because that's the parking enforcement. So ignore the 6. So just look at the 100.
I'm sorry. Okay. I get it.
Got it. Okay. So
Yeah,
of that 100, 30 is a recruitment firm. I
and
think
70 is for the program assistant, right?
Yeah, 70 was for the program assistant the program ARPA program manager that we pulled out. But to your point, right now there's only 5,000 of actuals against this against this line item. But it would probably be wise to put in for probably two months of an interim.
Yeah,
position,
I'd
3
say
months.
50 at least. I don't know what council thinks, but
So maybe
I
keep
don't know if
that
that's too low.
as an 80,000 ad.
Well, aren't we going to move if we go with the search firm, wouldn't that be also under professional fees?
No, that's under professional fees, Phil. Yeah, we'd be putting it under professional fees. We'd move 30, if I understood. I'm sorry, Andrea, if I'm jumping in.
Okay, you're
Putting
fine.
30 for the recruitment firm, if we do it, that would go under professional fees.
Mhm.
And then we had also other monies under the contract office assistant line item that was to go towards the ARPA program assistant. So we'd be taking that out of there as well.
So that should drop, that 100,000 change would actually go to zero until we
Okay.
adjust for the interim, right?
That's my understanding. Is that right, Andrea? Was the 70 in total, or did the 70 come? I'm sorry, let me ask this way. Did the 70 include the 30,000 for the recruitment form? And that would have left us with 30 on that balance line item, or would it go to zero?
The 100,000 here was 70 plus 30.
Okay, so the 70 was the ARPA program assistant, right? Okay, yeah, so it goes to zero, Phil.
Yeah.
And I think, but it also covers other current contract
Right.
fees, doesn't it, right now? I mean, we
Well-
have other people on this line item.
Right. And so that's the question, is
Yeah.
that if you would want an interim manager,
We'd have to put it
right, I think this would be
Put it up.
yeah. Again, I think it could be 11.4 or 11.2.2. It just depends on.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that under, well, that would be,
11.2.2, even though it's a bit of a misnomer, I think would be better there because that's for the interim person.
It's yeah,
Yeah.
contract.
and it would be a contract, correct? And
Yeah.
it's sort of, you're sort of open-ended, like, I mean, a professional fee is we're bringing somebody in to do something like the recruitment firm, if we go that way, and that's that.
Okay.
That's my take on it. So I agree with Phil. So how much do you think we should put on there, guys? You were talking about at least 2 months, Andrea. I guess at a minimum, I'd say 2 months,
Yeah.
December and
I was actually
January.
thinking 3 months.
Maybe
because
3 would
Could
be.
be 3 months if we bring somebody in sooner. That would be nice.
Yeah, you could always adjust it down. I would just put a quarter on it.
So what do you want to do? How would you like to break that down, Andrea?
Well, you were thinking 50, Khaki,
Well, I mean, just
just to overshoot.
that would, yeah, it'd probably be overshooting. We could probably even do it at,
30,
if we did,
40.
if we did like it at 10 grand a month,
Mhm.
you're at 30, but I agree. I think we kind of should do maybe 40. I don't know what's out there. I don't know what, people on an interim basis, they might want to go higher, like you were
Right.
mentioning before. So
Yeah.
I think I'd go at least 40.
Okay.
Council, what does council think?
I'm gonna split it and say 45, but whatever.
I'm fine with 40.
Agree.
Agreed.
Okay, we'll put in 40.
Yeah. And that's under 11.2.2, right?
Correct. Yep. Somebody's got.
Okay, so we've got 30 now that we just need to.
Are you trying to balance right now?
Well, just to keep an eye on it for,
Yeah, okay.
we'll need to
Okay.
decide where to put it. Okay, any other questions or discussion on operations?
I'm sorry, you were talking about the equipment M&R for 3,000.
Yep.
Can you remind me again what that was?
Yeah, so just noting that we budgeted 8,000, but we've already overspent it because we had
The
two-
dumpster.
Yeah, there was a repair that needed to be made to one truck, and then like right on the heels of that, the other truck had an expensive repair, and then we had a more normal sort of equipment repair or maintenance line item in there as well. So we had 3 kind of big line items that hit us right in a row. So just adding 3,000 to bump that up again so that we have a little bit of money there for equipment M&R.
Okay.
It's not usual that we expend over that line item. It's not usual that we would do that in the first quarter. So
Yeah, there are problems in that, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you scroll to the bottom?
yeah.
Okay. There we have a lot in contingency.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty healthy for contingency.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, ready for me to go on to capital? Everybody ready? Okay. All right, for capital, then this is reallocating the remainder of the carryover, which was 355, but now we have another 30,000. The majority goes to the town hall renovation, and the rest is to line items that can get decreased pretty quickly because of large expenses. So just making sure that there's enough in there to be nimble. So a great example is actually the speed bumps that were brought up earlier. The streets, when we do roads projects, they tend to be pretty large dollar projects. So it's nice to have funds that are sitting in there for sidewalks or for roads, because if you need to do something, it's probably going to be, have a decent price tag attached to it. So it's nice to have a little bit that's ready there so that we can be nimble if we need to do something, right? So for the first item for streets and curbs, this actually is related to the repaving of the roads, and I put in an additional 60,000, and this is entirely a placeholder estimate.
Can you, excuse me, Andrea,
Yep,
can you
sure.
go to the capital
Oh, I'm
page?
sorry. Yep.
Thanks.
So I put in 60,000 as placeholder for repaving Kenilworth from Argyle to Albemarle. And part of the reason is that this is on our capital asset survey that Clark Azar put together a while ago. This is in our schedule to repave this stretch. It was actually, I think, in 2020. Obviously, with COVID, everything got crazy and behind. But there's a request for the house that will be demolished there to move the driveway, but where the driveway would be moved to, there's a speed bump right there, and they've asked about what they need to do to kind of make that happen. But if we know that we need to repave that stretch of road anyway, it would make sense to do that in FY23 rather than have them, pay to move a speed bump when we're going to repave it anyway. So that's a placeholder estimate that's in there for right now. 26.2 is for sidewalks. Again, I just put some money in here knowing that we have a sidewalk project planned. That way there would still be funding remaining in there if there's other projects that we have coming up. But obviously if you want it to be, somewhere else, or khaki, you see a different spot for it, that's, up to you all. Any questions on those before I move on, since those are items? Okay.
No.
The next item is 27.1 for facilities. So for Penn Place, I added funding to here to account for, we had estimated lower than the actual cost to do the space planning. So basing that on actuals. And then also we had $22,000 of HVAC expenses in Penn Place. So putting in more funding to kind of account for those expenses. And not that that totals 50,000, but again, it's in particular for Penn Place and Town Hall. These are old buildings, and sometimes when things go, the repairs can be expensive. So just making sure that there's enough funding in there for the things that we have planned for the year ahead, which includes painting Penn Place. And I'm not sure what that cost will be, because there's some rotten siding that needs to be replaced, and all materials are more expensive than usual right now when it comes to wood and steel and everything. So let's see, then for Town Hall, obviously this accounts for adding some funding to have it in here for renovations. Also that there was an HVAC unit that was replaced, that we have siding that needs to be replaced, that there's slate that will need to be repaired, and for the fence replacement that will be happening soon. So that's 27.2. Any questions on those or discussion?
I've got two questions on SRTS. We're carrying, it looks like $18,000. Are we still expending money on SRTS?
That
26.
That 18,000 will be spent. There was some expenses by Patriot that the state did not approve, that the state approved our final reimbursement request that included those expenses, and those add up to, I think it's just over 17,000. So that will be expended. I'm not sure how to answer it beyond that though, but I know that that 18,000 is spoken for.
Okay.
They sent the funding and then asked for some of it back, or did I mishear? They approved it and then asked for some back, or did I misunderstand?
There was a difference of opinion between the state and Patriot on the quantities of certain, going back like a year ago or something, but they got on the same page with all of it. They all agreed on the final quantities. And because of that, in our final reimbursement to the state, we asked for that amount the state didn't agree with previously. And in the state's reimbursement to us, they agreed with that. And so once we receive that check from the state, which we haven't gotten yet, then we'll need to turn around and pay Patriot for that 18,000, 17,000.
We had held that out of one of their last invoices because we had paid and we were told that we weren't going to get reimbursed. So we were holding that back, and now we can go ahead and be reimbursed for it. So now we're paying, right?
Yeah.
And my second question was the HVAC work that's been done recently. Can any of that be charged to COVID or the ARPA funds?
I don't think so. No. We had, I'd have to look back at the paperwork, but there was something that was minor that we had asked for related to HVAC, that they approved one thing, but they didn't approve the other thing. Like maybe they approved the UVC light, but they didn't approve special filters or something like that, right? So I don't know that they would go for an entire HVAC unit. But I mean, again, I think that's a good question though for this ARPA program manager, because it's retroactive back to March, you know. I think it's a question worth asking, but I wouldn't count on it.
Fair enough.
Although I will say this, that was based on FEMA's determination, which would be totally different than Treasury's. So
I think, I imagine Donald will get to this in a little bit. That's what, we don't really know the width of what can be used. And I'm just wondering when it comes to town hall, what kind of place, where we can, so we have money set aside. This is not for any kind of major work. This is just for, to keep it going. And on top of that, we probably have some, there might be some, and Donna could maybe shed some light on this, some opportunity for some real capital revenue to do some real work in town hall beyond this money that's set aside here. in the budget.
Yes, Mary, I think you are correct from my read of the ARPA notes. It is really broad, and I think basically there's not much that they're preventing from being paid for. So I think depending on what the aspects are that we in town hall to be fixed, I think that it may be.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Donna, but I think you're breaking up, at least on my end, but I think I got your point. And I would say that the money's been allocated and earmarked for, to be divvied out. So I think they're not going to question too much, is my understanding across, in this place I'm working in. And I think there's a lot of latitude here. Anyway, sorry.
okay. Let's see.
Just real quick on the SRTS, is that the last bit of expense? The one you were describing earlier? Or is that ongoing?
I think that's over, right?
Okay.
I don't think we have anything else
Yeah.
outstanding.
I'm curious if I'm the only council member that has this question, but I don't think we ever saw or heard anything about how the whole total of SRTS ended up with the budgets, what was granted and what was spent. I haven't heard anything in probably 2 years on it. So I'm curious if there's a final report on it. I think it was mentioned before there would be an audit at the end.
I think there was a desk audit. Is that right, Kaki, that Ryan?
There was on all quantities, documentation and quantities. Materials, yeah.
I don't know. Will there be a full financial audit? I don't
Audit
know
may
if
not
we-
be the right term for it. It may be a wrong term by me, but I remember hearing that the council was going to hear what the result was of it, but haven't heard anything. Maybe I missed it, but maybe I'm the only person that still would be interested to hear it.
Well, the town money is what you see on the capital account side, and otherwise it's the grant money. And I believe we used it all because we were allowed to use some of that towards the inspector. So we were able, I can't remember. I think we spent it all. We used all the grant money. We didn't go over. So, and I think because it was spent over more than one fiscal year, I don't think there is a federal audit.
Yeah,
I have to go back and check that.
right.
That's what I remember from the accountant saying. If we had spent it all in the same fiscal year, but we didn't cross fiscal years. So, because the tipping point is the million, and it was 1,016,000 roughly, give or take. And that was split over a couple of fiscal years. Oh, actually more than that, really.
And Kaki, I was trying to remember we have the 18 here, and did that used to be 40? Do you want to, do you want to ask him?
Yeah, I gotta go back. Can you roll up to it? Because
Well, it's not on here, not for this fiscal
Oh,
year.
it's not on this one, right?
No.
Yeah, let me look here quick. Because once upon a time we had 40 plus we had, I thought it was 8. We had 8 with for the contingency.
Yeah.
With the and so that's where we were.
You have the 8 and the 10.5 here.
Mhm. Yeah, I thought we'd paid the last, we'd settled it all out, but if you think that we are gonna end up using that full 18 balance, then
Yeah, because we still have an $18,000 bill we
because of
need
this,
to pay.
the
Yeah.
17 and the 12 or whatever it was roughly, yeah, okay.
And I don't know, Kaki, if Patriot is on the same page with Ryan on the final everything, because I know
I-
that, but for my understanding was that the last invoice we paid was the last invoice.
Yeah, and I thought that was pretty much settled by everybody, so I don't know where she's coming from either.
Okay,
I haven't picked back up on that.
okay. To pay, I didn't want to send Patriot a check until we get the reimbursement from the state, just to make sure that it's, because it's sort of, it goes through a lot of different layers with the state, and so we don't always fully know that it's approved until we get the check.
Yeah,
Best way of
And this-
knowing it's approved.
and this one was really messy anyway,
Mhm.
because state and everybody was tracking the materials sort of on different timelines. But it's all reconciled now.
Okay. Let's see. I think that the next one that you all would be wanting to hear about would be Arboretum. Is that right? I added 15,000 to Arboretum. Again, this is sort of similar. I just think it's wise to keep this at a certain level because trees can be expensive, and being able to work through that and sort of with deal with the issues that need to be dealt with and not have a backlog is helpful. So we know that we need to elevate on Strathmore, prune on Strathmore, and we know that that's going to be pretty expensive. So making sure there's enough budget for pruning, budget for removals, budget for emergencies, whether it's operations or capital, just making sure everything is adequately budgeted for. For 30.1 for the website, just adding in some additional funding in here. So this could be, if anything's needed, if the next town manager wants to use the service request function more than we utilize it now, if there's anything that needs to be done to make that happen, or with the University of Maryland project with the students, with the Arboretum, this would also just be some additional funding to be able to do that. If there's any kind of technology solution. So part of what they're looking at is how to help us improve our workflow processes. So putting in a little bit of funding for that. And that is it for the capital items. There is this additional 30,000 that could also go into the town hall. Just sort of continuing to grow that line item for renovations. Any other questions related to capital?
Andrea, I wasn't quite clear which 30,000 you were just referring to.
Oh, sorry, that's the 30,000 from operations. So we still have.
Oh, from the.
Yep.
Okay.
So for that, what used to be 100,000 was split up to two line items, one being 40,000, the other being 30,000. And so we'll have 30,000 more that we can transfer to capital, because it's not being used in operations. Sorry, if I had this Excel version open, it would be a lot clearer.
But didn't we just add like 40,000 for the transition?
It was 100 though, right? So did I get that wrong?
And we
Yeah.
took 70 and 30 out, right?
Right.
30 was for the program manager.
Right, so that put that to 0, and then
But
we
see,
add 40 back in.
but what she's saying is that, yeah, you could, ostensibly you could use that 30,000, put it back in, because that 30 was going to be used with ARPA funding, right? No, it was the 70 that's going to be used for the ARPA funding.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you're left with, right, you
Right.
got it right, 40 and 30. So the 30 would be something you can put over into capital, and you could, where would council members like it? I think the town hall is a good place, but where else would people like to see it?
Well, I think town hall is, to me, is a top priority, and I'd rather see it there for now. So personally,
Agree,
Yeah,
the
I
more the
would agree
better.
to put it town hall.
what was that, Jerry Lee?
I was just agreeing with Mario to put it in town hall.
Agree also.
I was gonna suggest contingency, but I'll go with town hall.
Town hall it is.
Any other questions or anything budget related that Khaki that you want to speak to, or council members, if you have any additional questions?
Well, I have a question, Andrea, under technology on the Capitol.
Mhm.
We've got almost 13,000 there budgeted. Do you think do you anticipate anything major through the remainder of the fiscal year through next June that we would need anything?
I think some of this could depend on the timeline for, well, I mean, you could take it out of either place, but if the place space planning has any IT improvements that need to be made, right? Like a conference room or something that we'd want to
Right.
have, right? So that could be one thing. I think that we're probably still shy one laptop. And to meet the security requirements and stuff, they're more expensive than one might anticipate. I think it could be reduced, but
Okay.
you know, again, it's sort of nice to have the flexibility in there for things that come up. Obviously, town hall AV improvements probably aren't going to be. I shouldn't say obviously, because they could be. I mean, I don't know, right? Part of the agenda management system is that it can streamline with your video, but you have to buy the equipment for the video, but it can integrate really nicely with the agenda management system. So there's things like that that could come up.
Okay. So I have a couple other thoughts here. One is on the parks and open spaces. I don't know if that would include any kind of raising of the Yendel property, and you know, again, you still got the clearing and the grubbing, as well as just bringing down a building. And if that 25.8 is sufficient, or if that needs to be beefed up. And the second one I wanted to raise is, you know, tree planting. And I'm not sure whether the trees are on the capital side here or operations, but maybe they are.
Planting is capital.
Okay, there it is. So we have a lot of trees that are going to have to be planted, I think, down at the end of Rokeby, since they all got torn out. And I don't know if this is, you know, covering that or not.
Yeah, tree planting doesn't tend to be, it's not all that expensive typically. So I think that would be efficient. For the Endel property, there's also a reserve, which I know we don't adopt the
that's
reserve
right.
as part of the budget, but it's on the monthly report. And then
Right.
actually that's a good one to keep your eye on for the treasury funds, because of the intended use for that property, and
Right.
the language in the ARPA about sort of, not their words, but I'll just say sort of green infrastructure. I think that there's ways to,
This is true.
yeah, that could potentially, and also if there's a tank that's buried there,
Yeah.
That
that's
could be a
great.
potential use of the ARPA funds would be to remove that tank. So I think that there's,
And the dog park.
yeah, a few different places to kind of pull
Okay.
from for that property.
All right. So we
Mine-
probably don't,
If I may, my interpretation of the ARPA fund language also would probably support, additional tree planting as well, actually.
is that right? Yeah. Because there's more than just tree planting. It's the labor to plant it too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. We should
Especially when
find
it's
that out.
related to some sort of stormwater or rainwater mitigation.
Ah, yeah. And this was part of the stormwater
Yep.
management down there
Mhm.
where they blew up the whole place.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
By the way, roads are also covered.
Yeah, good.
Hmm.
That's a lot. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions left?
Have enough money for stormwater, because have we paid for the work that's been done at Rokeby so far? I mean, will that number actually come down some?
We have not, I don't think we have paid for it yet. I'll look back. You're wondering if that could come down some, like be lowered?
No, I'm wondering if if
It's enough?
it's gonna be drawn down. So in other words, we see it as 255 right now, but it might be closer to like 155.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And this is, again, the challenge of like that this is using the September report, and I don't even think that I don't think we've paid any bills on that.
We might, can we, for the adoption round, be able to get at least how much it's gonna cost, so we can kind of pencil in what that number is gonna look like?
So what's left outstanding, Phil, then is is it phase 3 that we're talking about? The pipe versus the bike path? Because we already have the award for the erosion mitigation, that with all the rock, that we know that.
I'm thinking about, well, unless this comes out of the ARPA funds, in which case it really doesn't matter.
Sounds like it could,
So then I
according to
guess,
Donna. Yeah.
yeah, so I guess we could hold off and then just pay it through the ARPA funds, and this 255 will stay 255.
Yeah, could do that.
No pressure, Donna.
No, not at all. No, not at all. But Jackie's right. I think we could, and Phil, you're right. I think I'd say leave it well enough alone at this point, because I think the ARPA can help in any way that this goes north of what we've anticipated.
Well, I'm thinking of paying for the whole thing, or what I'm thinking is that if we had to pay money for the work that's been done so far, this 255 would go lower, but if we can pay it out of ARPA funds, then it's going to just stay the same.
Yeah, and that's what I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying, yes,
Okay.
Let it stay the same, because it is stormwater mitigation, and it is after March. That is a viable project.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Andrea, do you want to keep that? How do you want to proceed? Do you want to, do we want to make a motion here, or council? We have a few changes that were made to the proposed budget for mid-year correction. Do you want to make a motion to adopt, to introduce with those changes? How would you like to proceed? It's in your hands.
I would put a motion to adopt the changes.
So you're approving the introduction
Yes,
of the mid-year budget with changes that were discussed.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay. All in favor, just say yay, and I'll get back to the nays or
Yay.
abstain.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay. Is there anybody who is abstaining? Is there anybody saying nay? Okay. So approved with the changes. Thank you. Okay, let's see. It's 8:58 by my watch. We have two business items, new business items to talk about. I don't know how brief we can make these. I think I'd like to, we really didn't say which would come first. So I think I'd like to just take the first one about the county redistricting and just talk quickly about that one. As you know, last year at the November election, county residents voted to have 7 council seats instead of 5. We've been carrying 5 on the county council. It was voted to have 7 and keep 4 at large. So you would have a total of 11 representation for the county. What has happened since then is the county's been looking to redistrict all the 5 into 7 districts. So this has included, there's been several iterations of draft redistricting maps, and they have now proposed sort of the final draft to go forward to the council, county council, for approval. The commission was to put these together. It looks like right now the town of Garrett Park, the town of Kensington, Chevy Chase View, and Tacoma Park are being placed into a new district, along with Silver Spring and North Bethesda. The county council will be voting on this at the, another week or two. And that will then carry for the primaries into June to get the 2 extra seats, council members, county council members. And then, of course, in November of 2022, there will be the vote, election for what county council members there will be. I have more detail than that. And I also have more detail about what county council members are stepping down, who are term limited, who are running for county executive. So suffice to say, there's going to be quite a lot of movement and some open seats. What's bringing this up now is that the town of Kensington has asked for some coordinated effort with Chevy Chase View and the town of Garrett Park to help ensure that our local municipalities stick together. There were a couple letters that we put forward to the county council, the mayors, to ask for consideration that we all remain together, all the down county municipalities, that we all remain together, there's just economy of scale of leveraging and for common issues that we have, common themes. Unfortunately, they didn't really follow that, and they broke us off and they put us in this new district, understanding that all the districts got redistricted. All the demographics have shifted. So now we're looking to see whether we can maintain at least some get some assurance that we're at least staying with Town of Kensington and Chevy Chase View, although there's some opinion out there that we really don't belong in the same district with Tacoma Park. It's much different. It's a much different entity demographically as well. But whether or not we can actually push back and say, just keep all these down county municipalities together, I don't know what the chances are of that. But this little working group of Town of Kensington and Chevy Chase and Garrett Park, I've been asked to ask the council members if somebody on the council here would like to volunteer to just sort of stay, current with what Kensington and Chevy Chase View are doing in terms of, defending the position that we all stay together in front of the county council. You don't have to, I've been assured that you don't really have to do any hard lifting. It's just being present and being able to come back and report to us. Hope that was succinct enough.
Sounded like
Fun.
they have us together, but just with Silver Spring, Tacoma Park, kind of like that bow tie looking thing on the map versus staying together with other communities around like the Connecticut Avenue and Rockfield Pike corridor, which would make more sense to me.
Correct.
But I guess from maybe it's just a matter of wording it. Like if they may receive it and say, well, yes, we did keep you together. We just kept you together and put you with Silver Spring and Tacoma Park.
Right. No,
Who
you're
else
right,
is-
Stephen.
Good half hour away.
Who else
Yeah.
is part of the down county counties, if you will?
You would have like Martin's Addition, the Chevy Chase Villages, Somerset. Andrea, you got some names. I'm sure
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if Glen Echo, if they're in the
Oh.
same one right now. But yeah, Martin's Addition, Somerset, all the various Chevy Chases.
Yeah.
Friendship
mean,
Heights.
Yeah, it was all part of the Montgomery County mayor's group, and there was quite a number of us. Sorry, I can't remember. I don't know what
Was there a
Burtonsville or something. I'm not
Was
sure.
there a justification as to why separate them in this way, not some other?
I didn't hear specifics. I saw a demographic map of demographics, so I don't know what they were reaching for other than perhaps more harmony. I don't know. But if somebody wanted to volunteer, you could probably get that information from the person on the council at the Town of Kensington or Chevy Chase View. So is there anybody who is going to want to volunteer to just sort of, you can be a fly on the wall and an ear on the phone. I'm told that there isn't a lot to do, just at least to sort of form a front here. That's what I've been told by Kensington. So.
Okay, I mean, I can do it if that's basically
Okay.
what it gets down to, sure.
I
Unless
think
somebody
it's-
else can do it, in which case I will yield to them.
Thank you, Phil. I think that you're the point person then. Appreciate that. I'll let them know and I'll put out a introductory email for you. Okay, I'll keep you on that. All right. Next item under new business, it's 9:06, is the town manager resignation transition plan. Well, as most of you all know, the council, we all know that Andrea has put in 3 hard years with us, and her contract was for 3 years, so that is now coming to an end, and she's been in a place to receive a wonderful opportunity to go higher, to go bigger, to go more, and she's going to be doing that. And her last day is December 3rd. We are left with trying to figure out the transition. We had an administrative meeting to discuss some of this, but we really need a more thorough, I think, discussion now. And that is, how do we want to proceed? If we want to have an interim town manager while we search for a more permanent one, or do we just forego an interim and just search for a permanent? There was somebody who mentioned, I guess temp to hire kind of situation. We're aware that the Chevy Chase, I think it's Chevy Chase View, if I got it right, is currently vetting candidates now for a town assistant, and whether any spillover of resumes might be up for us to be able to look at, which might cut down on going through any kind of major recruitment and process of all that. One of the things
Town of Chevy Chase, sorry, just.
Town of Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Andrea. One of the things to keep in mind is the timing here. Andrea's last day is December 3rd. We're sitting on the 8th. We only have a few weeks left. Is it even likely, realistic, that we can get an interim in place? And, would they be here before December 3rd? Would they come in even if they came in towards the end of December? Who's going to take the charge if we don't have anybody? And if we have only an interim who comes in only for a few months and needs a lot of handholding and training, who's going to do that? So I'm asking you all to think about efficiency here for the town, for the sake of the town and the operations. And now I'm going to leave it to all you. And Andrea, do you want to add anything?
I'm here if anybody has any particular questions or if there's any insight I can offer.
If I may, just to reiterate what Mayor Kaki was saying, time is of the essence. The timeframe we're working in is itself going to be truncated because of holidays and whatnot. So what is it that, how do we proceed from here? With those 2 points, I would think that perhaps starting with the lowest common denominator and getting some resumes from Chevy Chase to look at as a start point would be the best use of time immediately. And as for next steps, discussing here what it is that those would be, but I think that would be a easy, as they say, low-lying fruit that we can start with.
And would that be looking at some resumes for permanent or for interim?
Permanent.
Permanent.
I think teaching and going over training repeatedly wouldn't be the best time.
Well, the reality is, the reality is it'd be one of hiring someone temp wise, and this he or she turns out to be just spectacular. Then who cares? Then you just make the offer, unless you have to by some bylaw have to post a job. I don't know, but I wouldn't worry about whether it's permanent or not permanent. I think we just got to get someone in, he or she in here like as soon as possible, like literally like next week, so that Andrea can spend some time with them. So it's not all falling on, quite frankly, most likely Kaki shoulders, because of the day-to-day stuff. So I don't care how we define it, whether it's temp to hire, temp to temp. But I think we need someone in there. I don't think we can wait to the full-time hire. That's going to take months, unless I think.
Yeah. Well, the question then becomes, where do we get that temp from? Which is why I'm saying at least we'll start with the paperwork.
Yeah.
We do both at the same time.
I agree. I think you do both. I think you do you set it up for the search, and then you do the maybe, I don't know, there's some discussions earlier about, like you said, some folks in Chevy Chase or someplace else that might be taken on. Unless someone, I don't know.
Could we perhaps kind of provide some broad guidance to the town manager, similar to how we did for the maternity hire interim town manager, where we A designated that we did want someone to cover, and I think we gave Andrea pretty broad latitude to recruit for that person using some of her connections with the ICMA, or I can't remember which organization. So that could include for Chevy Chase, but we could give her the broader guidance to look wherever else she might quickly be able to get a pool of candidates for an interim town manager.
Agreed.
Yeah, so let me, for those who aren't familiar, Phil and Stephen are, but we had time with Jean Swearingen before we hired Andrea. You know, Jean stayed on until Andrea came on board, and I think there was even a little overlap. So we don't have that luxury this time. And understand that if you go with an interim now, and I help train that person. Now, Andrea might be available for the occasional phone call. She was much more available, I think, with Debbie. You know, Debbie worked in the office, but, you know, Andrea helped quite a bit by phone. I don't know the circumstances now if that really will be the same. But seeing it like this is, if we're going with an interim and you want me to train that person, that's my time, my valuable time. And then if that person leaves and we bring in a permanent person and I have to help train that person up, again, that's my valuable time. That's why I asked about efficiency. You know, it's not my call, but certainly I could do this in the interim while we proceed with getting somebody permanent. Because otherwise you're asking me to step in once or twice.
Is
And
there
I
a,
mean,
I hear you, Kathy.
yeah.
My question, and honestly, I don't think it's a terrible idea at all. I just want to know if is there any conflict of interest, or is there some sort of bylaw within Garrett Park that says that a sworn town, in this case mayor, cannot receive a paid employment even though they're not working as mayor, or if it's one of us as town council. I just look, I hear you. I'd rather just get someone in and feel good about the fact that someone's going to manage all this and just be done with it. But I also don't want to set a precedent where optically look like. And again, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. You might have the best intentions, Kathy, but it could come across as you know, not with the best intentions. Even though I personally think you're probably trying to just get it done and be efficient. But you know.
No, you're right. I asked our attorney about that. And so by charter, as you all know, hopefully, that neither the mayor nor any council member is allowed to receive any financial compensation. Any of that could change by charter amendment, of course, but that's how it's been. If I were to become interim, it would be with council approval. And yes, I would be allowed to receive some compensation if the council again wanted to vote that way. I mean, granted, the optics may not look good, but you can certainly argue on the grounds of efficiency and experience and all that stuff. But the attorney said, it's really about the optics and how people, you know, how comfortable will people feel, because, you know, it's allowed. It's not a conflict. It's just what the optics are. So.
Okay.
And it's up to the council.
Right.
Would optics, and this is just an idea to throw out there, would optics be softened, if you will, knowing that the council perhaps would be assisting the mayor in this temporarily?
And what do you mean assisting?
In the sense
You
of,
mean just approving?
or if you need help in any kind of town management, should that be the option that we go with?
Yeah, I think that would be good, but are you still asking everybody to do it for free?
Well, not the mayor, but the rest of us perhaps.
I mean, the whole point, I mean, hopefully this whole thing is at best a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
it's at a terrible time because we have
know.
the
No,
budget.
I hear you. No,
Right?
I hear you, Kathy, and
Well, I don't know if everybody else has. I just want to, because they probably aren't all aware of we've got the mid-year budget to rectify, adopt. We've got the fiscal year 23 budget coming up that we have to work on. We have the end of Rokeby stormwater. We also have the next phase of that, which is the storm pipe or the bike path. So that's a whole nother bid documentation. And then there's also the sidewalks. And then there's even more outreach to county officials on stormwater and infrastructure, which could also include other areas of stormwater problems in town. So this is the time of the year where things are really.
But we also don't know that someone who comes in here. We also don't know that if someone comes in here that has experience in this space can jump in and I don't know. I mean, I hear you saying, Kaki, and I don't. On the surface, I think it's from the standpoint of efficiency makes sense, but I also think could potentially, I don't know. I'm a little conflicted about it. And I'm sure you are too.
I understand, right?
And I appreciate you want to just get it done, and I think.
But I think you have to understand, I'm not going to go in and start training people.
No, you don't. It's not your job,
right? Yeah, but so how do we, there's no guarantee that somebody who comes in either as an interim or as a permanent is going to be able to just jump in and hit the deck running. I doubt it very much.
Well, then we just got to roll up the sidewalks and close down Garrett Park for a couple of months. I don't know. I don't know.
Can we do that?
Well, we just spent a lot of money putting those sidewalks in. But in any case, there's a couple of things. I mean, you'd be your own boss essentially, because doesn't the town manager report to the mayor? And I just see it as being a big conflict of interest problems.
That's okay, Phil. I don't have to do it. I understand where it would be. I mean, I think that the council would be the people who would would actually have the oversight. I think mayor is actually is even the mayor. There's something in the charter about the mayor can be dismissed or something like that by council.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
for for operations or experience or some issue or conflict.
So the only thing I'll say that here's what's going to happen then, other than is that worst comes to worst, we don't have someone in place. We wait till we get the person, just like we hired Andrea. Andrea was very seasoned and came in, hit the ground running. We need the same person. And if things get delayed, the town's gonna have to understand, and that's just the way it's gonna have to be. I mean, we can't do things we can't do, and it should not fall on you to do this stuff, Kaki. It's not your job, and I stand by that. And if things have to get delayed a few months because we don't have a town administrator here to manage projects, and projects have to get delayed, and that's just the way life is. I mean, that's just, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, I appreciate your offering, but if the ruling here, we haven't voted on this, but if there's 5 of us here, and if the ruling is that we'd rather just get someone here to do it and just do it once and be done with it, then everything we discussed, we'll have to just wait. I mean, and get pushed back.
Hey, I would much rather have somebody really competent and seasoned and come in and do it. That would be my preference. I just know that is less likely.
I mean, I would think that you're gonna now doubling your workload also, because you're now gonna have to do whatever you've been doing as mayor, but you also get to do whatever Andrea's job is also. So, I mean, I think that's a lot of work for one person. Wherein if you can split the workload up, even if it is with a temporary person, hopefully we can get somebody quickly. And we have to look at the history. I mean, let's face it, we have had times in the past where the town managers, is not, I guess, been able to put 100% in. So we've had to work around it. And I don't know, it's just where I'm going.
Yeah, Phil, I think that's a critical point that bringing in an interim person expands our capacity. If we just add additional collateral duties to the officials we already have, we're reducing our overall capacity. And we might get lucky and the interim hire might turn out to be a really good candidate for a permanent hire and there wouldn't need to be a second transition. And
Okay,
we could
that's good to hear you
extend,
say that, Jerry Lee, because you weren't thinking that way before, but that's good. You
no,
were
I
you
did.
were
I
reluctant. You were
No, I
reluctant
just
to.
said we wouldn't advertise that it was a permanent position up front. We would
Right.
say that we're hiring for interim. That doesn't mean that we couldn't
Right.
necessarily find that they were a good candidate. But if that
Oh,
person, even if we ended up
to
hiring
Donna's
a
point.
different permanent person, we could extend the temporary to help with the training of the permanent person based on the
That
skills they've gained over that time period.
yeah, that was part of the point of the putting more money in the budget. Okay, so which way are we going to go here? I think what I heard is if Andrea can kind of make some calls and even see if there's any resumes available that the town of Chevy Chase looked at, maybe we can get our hands on those and have a better idea what there is, whether it's enough for a permanent or enough for an interim, and then go from there. That's what it sounds like to me.
I would agree. I mean,
It's a good place to start.
If we don't find anything from that first foray, then just revisit this. So it's kind of a crucial issue. So it's not like we can't add an extra meeting if we really need to or something like that. So
Good point, Stephen.
Okay, I think we're done with that. All right, thanks everybody. Okay.
can I bring up something in a similar vein? We had discussed, well, actually two things is, one is, do we want to look at some point hiring a search firm for somebody for permanent, or do you want to kick that down the road a bit till we see what comes up and maybe we hold an interim meeting in a couple of weeks?
Or are you thinking maybe, we do it sort of a parallel track in the hope that the resumes, we'll have a better sense when we look at the resumes, whether we have to continue proceeding down that maybe recruitment path, or, if we can, not necessarily parallel, do it in tandem, like in step. You look at the resumes. If there's a no-go on any of that, then you proceed with using a recruitment firm.
Well,
And
Like
you
an
make that decision now, today.
Like you escalate the process, basically.
Yeah, right. Good word.
yeah.
Is it appropriate to ask Andrea if what is the experience, or actually all of you, not me, what has been the experience with search firm versus none? I'm sure they do it both ways.
Yeah, I mean, some communities use search firms and some don't. I think a lot of them do. I think when you're in this field, you sort of know the names of the places that do this. And so it's sort of like they're that common that you can name them. You know what I mean? I think it's just, depending on the time of folks to be able to review resumes and interview folks and all of that. And I think it's a different, it's probably a different lift. I would think about it as a different lift for me if I was hiring a permanent position or if I was thinking about an interim position.
Yeah, and I think what we found with the recruitment firm that we used in 2018, it did, I think, save all of us a lot of time, because there were a lot of resumes that were vetted and background checks were done before we ever had to look at it. If we don't go that way, we're treading right on the cliff here with Andrea leaving. It means, we all as a, council and group would have to, form a committee, look at resumes, vet them all, do all that work ourselves. I mean, certainly, I don't think you'd want to.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
Again, it's from a place of unknowing, so.
No, that's okay. I think at one point we thought about doing this even back in 18, of just not even going with a recruitment firm, but it was professionally done and vetted well, and a lot of things were taken off our hands to worry about. So, a lot of that, transportation, lunches, all all of that.
Such recruitment firms, yeah, it does become quite much easier when all of that vetting is done in advance, absolutely.
I mean, speaking from experience, having gone through this 2 hires,
yeah.
actually, one of the things was that we determined in 2018 that we didn't really have the time personally to lead that, to be that person to actually vet all those resumes, go through all that stuff like Kaki said. And even when they winnowed them down for us and came up with legitimate candidates, we still had to hold meetings to go through the ones and say, okay, who are we going to pick and what do we think about this? And there's still a bunch of stuff. And then finally you get down to doing your final interviews. So there's a lot of lifting left to be done. And I would strongly suggest that we hire somebody. Plus, they also know all the HR rules and all the federal laws about what you can say and you can't say, and this and that. And they advised us on that. And we don't have to worry about us sticking our foot in their mouth, or me, say, because they handle that stuff. And then they'll set us all up and say, okay, this is what you can do, and so on. It was a lot of money, but I think it was well worth it.
Well, we got Andrea.
Yes, indeed.
And from a candidate perspective, it was really smooth,
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah. Right. But now the next question is, the next question is, Andrea already told us that the Novak group that did the recruitment for us, they've joined with another entity. Do we still want to kind of reach out to them, or do we want to go and recruit for a recruitment firm? Now that takes time, because then you get proposals and you got to review the proposals and interview or whatever. So
It's the person that led it for us last time. Did she go to that other firm, or do we not know?
I think she's still there. I could figure that out actually pretty quickly.
We unhappy with that firm? Or were we satisfied? I should be better
I think we were.
satisfied.
I think it was fine.
Yeah, I think so.
But it was a lot of work, like Phil was saying earlier. It was 2 full days, I think, of time off from work for all of us involved. Maybe 3. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3.
I've hired people before. It's ridiculously long when you don't have a system set up like that.
The same recruiter, it looks like she's still there.
So is she's with this combined firm now?
Yeah. At least according to their website. Yeah.
All right. Well,
can we sole source it though? Because it is about what we're thinking, $30,000, give or take. I mean, somewhere north of 20. I mean, can we do that, or do we?
There's a time exigency here that Kaki. It's probably you're just gonna say.
Yeah, you definitely can sole source it based on what Andrea just said about time exigency, and there's also the fact that this person knows our town, the mission, the whole culture pretty much. So that's also a sole source way of justifying.
We also have the old fee, so if for some reason it comes in 2 or 2.5 times that, then good grounds to reboot. I can't imagine it would be that. They're probably just going to add 10 or 20% to what they had, or she would.
Plus, she's a known entity to us already.
Right. Yeah. And they've got all the documentation. As a matter of fact, I believe when we went out for Andrew, we actually redid documentation that existed, updating it and sprucing it up. So we didn't redevelop the wheel or start from scratch, which helped a lot.
Right. Okay, well, plan of attack, because we're getting on here in the night, and I apologize for all that. So sounds like Andrea, you're gonna make your reach out to your contacts, right, about the resumes, and if we can't get them, you're also gonna touch base with the retired town manager group, maybe, or ICMA.
Yep.
And hopefully we can get some kind of an answer this week. I mean, in terms of whether there's anything we can look at.
Yep.
You may not get any names from the retired town manager, but maybe at least as far as resumes go, we'll know whether or not we're going to be able to get any.
Yep.
And then I think, like Donna had said, we escalated up to reaching out to the Novak, Catherine Novak.
Catherine Parish. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, right. Catherine.
So, but you want to wait to see kind of how this week goes before.
I think so, but what does council think?
Event,
Do you want to see if we can get resumes first? Or should we just do both?
how
I
about-
would get resumes at the same time.
You would?
I would too, do
Right.
the resumes, see what we can do, and then reach out and see if we can get the proposal. And we may not need to go for it, but at least get it.
I agree.
Mhm.
Agree, at least start both at the same time. We could always suspend the consulting firm.
So I would think we would want to take a vote to say that we want to, because we want to be willing to expend the approximately whatever it's going to be, a lot of money. So if we get the vote out of the way now, then, as we've discussed, if we need to, we're all set to go. If we don't need to, well, we don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Or would it be better to just go ahead and figure we're going to need another meeting in 7 to 10 days to see whether we need to go further on that?
Well, if we vote, we can vote to spend the money, but we don't necessarily have to spend the money if we wind up not needing to go down the road. Is that right, Phil? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to kind of appropriate it, but not to execute
Not
that
to
contract
execute,
with
right.
that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right,
Just to-
because the other way, we don't really want to wait till December council meeting where you would, if you normally would adopt, because by adopting it, you're setting that policy in place that you've approving that money to be used for that reason. But we're not going to be there not soon enough. So we do have to step back and look at it this way as you're proposing. So you can propose that money gets spent now, even though we haven't adopted the budget. You can do it that way. So does somebody want to make the motion? Or do you want to just a sense of the council here? Is there anybody against this? And
I don't know the best path forward, but I have no objection either way. I think we need to be ready to move. I don't know if you want to, if you put it, if you go out and reach out to the firm and then we still have to vote on whether the money to spend it. I mean, I just want to make sure what we can strike when we have to. So I don't know the best process. I rely on Andrea. Maybe you can tell us, or Khaki, like what makes sense. I'm fine with taking a up and down vote to say we can have green light to spend the money when necessary, if that's allowed. I don't know.
So there's two things here, folks. There's in the introduction of this budget, there's roughly 40,000 for an interim, and you can vote on that now, and because we're not going to have time to wait for adoption. And there's also the
30,000.
Was it 30,000, Andrea, for the consulting, the recruitment firm?
Yep.
So you could make those two approvals so that we can act.
That's just to approve having the money there, not
Right.
not executing it or spending it.
Right. We still want to, right, because we still have to hire someone to spend the 40,000 on salary, if you will. And we
Sure,
still
and right, and so when we get the actual contract, if we got a proposal from the recruitment firm, for example, and we would want to award that, we come back for your approval to make that award.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
We just a special meeting for that then.
Well,
'Cause you wouldn't want to wait until December.
I just don't know whether or not we'd have enough, whether we'd be there yet. What do you think, Andrea?
We only have.
I mean, you could approve, and I know sometimes, Stephen, you might be uncomfortable about this, but you could approve with the ceilings that were just described. And if the proposal comes in at that or less, then we can make that award based on what you might approve tonight. But if the proposal comes over that,
Yeah.
then, we can't.
I'd
we
be
don't have
fine
that
with
money.
that. I'd be fine with that if I get the sense that we're all saying we're definitely moving straight forward to the search, but I thought the idea was to see what we could find with an interim, and then if there's nothing really fruitful from that basket, then go forward with the permanent search. Did I misunderstand it?
No, I
So-
think you got it right. I don't really see the confusion, but
So,
maybe
yeah.
I don't get it.
So,
Stephen, I think we wanted to just make sure that we didn't have to have a delay if seeking resumes wasn't proving fruitful, and we wanted to move right to working with the search firm, that we didn't have to have a delay to wait for another meeting to get that moving.
I guess maybe the disconnect I'm having is how do we determine, and who determines if we're not getting resumes that are fruitful?
Well,
Because you could just hire somebody tomorrow and just say
I'm
that. So
I'm certainly relying a lot on Andrea's eyes on this and her recommendation, and she might, I would imagine, want to vet some of these resumes with me and with council if you see some. But if there isn't anything promising, we can already in the meantime be asking for a proposal,
yeah, which we should
right?
do. Yeah.
From Novak, so that we can then move to award it if it stays within this dollar level that you may be deciding on tonight.
Got that. But I'm just wondering how
Okay.
that decision would be triggered, when to award it, if we get it. So
When to award it. I don't
how
know
would
what
that decision be made, triggered to go ahead and award the contract? I thought the idea was to get these interim candidate resumes, review those, and then also get that proposal and have both of those on hand. And if the resumes don't really pan out or seem fruitful, then go right into going with the contract to do the permanent.
I
but
think
was
that's
wondering
what we're all saying. I'm not sure of the confusion. I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah, but
Where
how
do you hear it
how and when
differently?
does it get this? How and when does it get decided to go ahead and spend that? Say we get a contract for $30,000 or a proposal for $30,000. How does that get triggered to say yes, we're going to tell her to proceed with that $30,000 work?
Yeah, that's a good.
The candidate or
You've
the
already,
the
if you,
recruiter.
okay, so this is where I was coming from. If you've already made approval of this money for this particular expenditure,
Mhm.
and that proposal comes in at that or below, then that's the fait accompli. That's it. We move right to that if we don't have anybody out of the other resume
I think
process.
what Stephen is saying is, how do we know that this resume process didn't work?
Well, that's up to you all and what resumes we get. It's not going to be made in a vacuum.
So we're all going to get, like, I guess all the town government would get to see all these resumes, and
The town government is council and you, yes,
yeah, so
council
we
and
would
me.
get to see it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Andrew, yeah, that's what I'm
That is
saying.
what you were asking,
Okay.
right, Stephen?
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was trying to find out.
I thought I
I
said
didn't
that.
know it could.
Yeah,
No.
I did. Yeah. Andrea would get whatever she can if she sees
Okay.
that they're not good at all, because I trust her. Then we have to move to the recruitment firm or some other
So you just reversed what you
process.
just said. So it sounded like we were going to get the pool of resumes, but now when you repeated
No,
it, it sounded
Stephen.
like we wouldn't.
No,
So-
Stephen, the first layer of review, the first tranche of review, I would put on Andrea to say, Andrea, did you get anything that's going to be decent? And if she says yes, then she'll send them to all of us. But if
Okay,
she says
that's fine.
I trust her.
I do
That's what
too,
we
but
pay
yeah,
her for. Okay, so that's what I've said. I've said it two
yeah.
or three times now.
It wasn't clear, that's all. Now we're all on the same
Yeah.
page.
All right, sorry. Okay.
So then I
I
gotta
mean,
move-
I'm thinking of an example from last year that I don't want to have to repeat, but like, so yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Okay. It's more important, I think, we approve the 40 to be spent than the 25. So if there's we can vote, and there's uncomfortable with 25, we can vote on 25 in December, if we don't think we're getting the resumes we need. I just think we should approve everything
The
now.
30.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
you
30.
mean,
Sorry,
yeah.
30.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I agree with Mario. I don't think this is small potatoes and a big payoff. So it's not worth
Right.
the rigmarole, if you will. The complication, excuse me, a little bit more specific.
You want to split it? I was thinking of splitting it into two motions. One motion is to approve up to $30,000 for hiring of a consulting firm
Recruitment firm.
if required.
Okay.
And then a second motion would be the other piece, which I'll get to, or somebody else can get to later, but
The 40,000 for the interim.
right, but I was gonna make it as two motions, so I was just gonna start off with the 30,000.
Go for it. All
I'll
right, Phil.
second the 30,000 motion that Phil just made.
Okay, up to, but not to exceed
Right.
for a recruitment firm.
Yes,
So we'll seek the proposal as soon as we can. Okay. Who would like to make the, I'm sorry. Is everybody in favor? And Jerry Lee seconded. So everybody in favor? You can raise your hands. I can see y'all
Aye.
now. Okay, great. Jerry Lee, did you? Yeah, you did. And who else am I missing? I got everybody, right? Okay.
Even, well, good.
Okay, great. All right. So approved. Thank you. Okay. Who would like to make the next motion?
Can cover it, I guess. A move that we hold, adjust the budget to hold $40,000 for interim town manager. Does that cover it appropriately?
Do we have a time? Maybe you guys said enough. Forgive me if I missed it. Is that 2 months, 3 months? Do we have a timetable on what that 40 would cover?
We were sort of approximating like 10 per month.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then we added another 10 because, I don't really know what.
No, I'm
Yes.
fine. I mean, we don't, right, we're not gonna exceed 40. That's fine. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
need, hopefully we'll have to start off.
I prorated 120 by 12,
It's fine.
the annual salary of 120 by
Okay.
12.
Sorry, I guess then if I'm dying.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
All right, there was a motion to that. Was there a second?
I'll second it.
Oh.
Okay, everybody,
Aye. You can't see me, but I'm stretching, but aye.
okay, so Mario, so everybody in favor, raise your hands or something. Well, we usually try to do this by voice.
Aye.
because of the recorder. Okay, and no nays, no abstains, okay? Sorry to rush that. Okay, so approved then. Thank you. All right. Does anybody want to take a break or shall we just keep going? It's 9:45.
Keep going.
All right. Okay. I think I said so. Roughly 9:44, and we're under town update. Sorry, I just blinked a minute here. Okay, Stephen, you want to give us an update on Historic Preservation Committee, if you have anything?
Yeah, just really brief. One of the things we're working on right now is trying to put out a historic area work permit to county HBC, hopefully this week, to make some adjustments to the front porch of Black Market Bistro, to add in some sort of reversible railings to that. So we met out there last Friday, I think, most of the committee, and had a meeting about that as well, and have some ideas that we're going to forward on to the HBC. It would either be kind of in kind with some of the porch that's already there, or probably preferred is to do something that kind of like is metal and recedes from view a little bit more, and just drops into brackets to kind of hem in that porch, but not be real obvious or look like it's original design. So originally that porch didn't have any railings on it, so that's
Right.
the main thing. So
What about the smaller porch by the front door? That has the wood railings, right? We can't use something to match?
we're gonna the idea is to ask to see if we can explore it further and either do that matches. That's not even the original one that was put in like 20 or 2000 or whatever the years that was replaced relatively recently, and it's really just the stock. It was never even permitted from the county HPC that I know of, but it's really just the stock railing coming from Home Depot. So I don't think we want to repeat that over there. We may end up trying to do it as just like a temporary thing, but the idea is explore it a little bit further, ask for the latitude from HPC to see whether we can put a railing like that on the bigger porch as was done in 2002 or whatever it was when the place was re-envisioned, or do these metal railings as an alternate. And I'm pretty hopeful that they'll say yes, that either one of those are appropriate, and just finalize it. So
I hope so. That'd be great. And I would advocate for having matching railings. But that means we replace the other ones. I mean, I think it would look kind of funny to have them different.
Yeah, we talked about that too. It could be like pushed to like match, so both match, and
Yeah.
it's kind of odd
Okay.
that railing is over there anyway, because originally that building didn't have. It was just you stepped up one step off
I know.
of the ground,
Yeah.
so
I
you
saw the
you
photo.
can make arguments. It's not the end of the world to match what we have, but I think it was a pretty slight lean towards doing the metal, but we'll finalize that.
Mm. Okay. All right. Thanks, Stephen. Donna, I don't know how to really like to see whether we can keep these updates kind of brief, but yours is probably not so brief. What do you think? What can you tell us all at this point without saying what's eligible or not? What
Sure.
can you?
It is, so how many minutes do I got? How about that? And
You
how-
got 3.
3. Excellent. Thank you. In that case, the funds, so I get the terminology correct, the state and local fiscal recovery funds are in fact quite flexible. And as you all have heard in our meetings and probably read in the newspapers and whatnot, it does cover a number of things, including infrastructure, water, sewer, and broadband services. Aspects that this town would be most interested in, as per my review, it would include interesting enough investment in parks and public places and outdoor recreation spaces to make a healthier environment, recreational and socialization to mitigate the spread of COVID, because this is obviously COVID related. That also means enhancing outdoor public places and even eating spaces, parks, and more importantly about the water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Pretty broad in the sense of what we can anticipate as a watershed pilot project. So these funds cover not only the projects themselves, but pre-project planning and development if necessary. One of the main concerns that the Treasury has and is promoting, and this is something I don't know about Garrett Park, and is that's the replacement of lead piping. And if there is such, that is like one of the #1 things that the Treasury is trying to promote.
Okay.
The pre-planning and development include water energy audits, capital improvement plans, road repairs, which I may have mentioned earlier, anything that are upgrades related to eligible water and sewer, stormwater issues and projects. The
Okay.
underlying premise is, as long as it falls within the drinking water and clean water state revolving funds, it's pretty much acceptable. Moreover, and something I didn't realize, and I think should be at the back of our mind, is that the interim fiscal rule, which is the document that's basically the government issued document illustrating what these recovery funds are for, stipulate that this is everything that's included is a non-exclusive list, which means that you can suggest projects that are not in the list as long as they're related. Even better than that, though, is the fact that you do not need pre-approval, as long as the understanding of the government of the town is that it falls within the purview of the fiscal recovery funds. So
Okay. That is great to hear. And I don't mean to, I want to turn this a little bit quickly to, you were going to have a task force or a committee working group.
Yes.
Would you be at this point in time able to form that, reach out to residents and do it
Yes.
by an email through GPML or GP Forum, and
whatever is the most appropriate, and
both if you like, and you just, it's up to you, and you decide on the number of people and how you're going to we'll have a program manager to assist in all this. I don't know how quickly that happens. Andrea, do we know how quickly that happens? Have they hired anybody yet?
No. The first step will be getting the towns that are going to participate to sign an MOU. The job description is pretty much ready.
Okay.
So I think Ron's working on the MOU right
Okay.
now, so.
Right. It might be just a good initial step then to just
Mhm.
get this to group together and start looking at some ideas.
Most definitely.
And we'll go that way.
Timeframe that you were allowed to work with, you might have heard the March 10th, 2021 date. However, anything that was even planned prior to that, as long as the funds weren't spent until after that, you can cover it. As for ending date, the obligation of funds is by December 31st, 2024, meaning as long as the projects are completed by 2026. So you have a 2-year time frame after 2024 to complete anything that is proposed and funded.
Okay. Thank you.
Just curious,
All right.
Donna, how big is the document with all that information? Is it something that's worthwhile to share around council? Or is it like
I'd
a
be happy to share,
7-inch thick document?
as long as you have a magnifying glass is all I'm going to tell you.
Just found one recently. So, okay.
Because it usually, as is typical for much of these documents, I'll tell you exactly, it is
Maybe thousands of pages.
It is 39 pages at, I would say, a font of 6, maybe.
Oh, so it's only 30.
more.
Okay.
So it is minute.
Okay.
But
Well,
I'd
if
be
it's
happy to
digital,
share
I can
it
zoom
with
it up.
everyone who'd
Okay.
like to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Okay, I'll share it around, no problem.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Donna. Okay. Phil, would you like to talk about Waverly Oxford sidewalks? You're muted, Phil. Oh, there you go.
Bad fingers. Okay, so Waverly Oxford sidewalks. I've got a couple of things. I'm going to split them up. So there's the sidewalk Oxford that runs from Waverly to I'm sorry, from Kenilworth to Montrose. That's one thing we've got up, and that's one. The second one is going to be from Waverly from the Kenilworth Triangle down to Montrose. That goes down the hill where we've got some bad old blacktop. And so my question was discussed earlier a little bit, was do we want to consider the use of FlexiPave or something similar for those projects? Because that's something that we can talk with our engineer about and then try and get the drawings completed so that we can then go through an approval. Because as I looked, the drawings are not done yet, which I'll get to in a minute. But my first question for everyone is, are we interested in using the flexible FlexiPave type product, or is that something that we're not even interested in?
And the alternative might be just the concrete, right?
Just straight concrete.
Okay.
So anybody have any comments?
Phil, the 2 samples that were put up in Penn Place, are those the only 2 sample options? I thought you had mentioned to me that there was one that looked a little bit more matched closer to the look of the concrete.
There's 2 varieties of it. There's a flexible variety, which tends to come in darker colors. It's only a couple of darker colors.
No, there's a ton of them. There's a lot
There's
of them.
like 40 colors maybe or something like that.
Yeah.
But
So that's the rubber and stone aggregate mix. That's your flexible porous, right?
right.
And then the other one
Has
is
many colors, right?
no, it's not actually. It's actually has fewer, and that's just stone aggregate. That's just a porous stone aggregate. It doesn't have the flexibility because it doesn't have the tire in it.
Okay, I'm talking about.
But what Jerry Lee's thinking about is the stone aggregate one. That has colors that more likely match, concrete. They're lighter because they don't have rubber in them. The rubber and stone aggregate are darker because of the rubber.
Right. So, and I'm thinking of the stone and rubber type, because that tends to be a little better cleaning itself as people walk along the
Sure it
paths
does.
and so forth. So the answer to your question would be no, we would not be able to get something that would be of the same lighter color as the existing concrete.
Did we ever get comments from the Historic Preservation Committee about the different look and feel in that, especially in that portion, since it's part of the historic district?
What it was discussed in a meeting, but I can't remember if a report went out on it. I think there was one report by Arboretum Committee though. I can't remember if there was one by, yeah, there was one by Historic Preservation, but I think it was mostly just saying it was premature to, I think, decide it globally. So, and I would tend to agree. Like I just don't understand the point of. It sounds like we're being asked, do you want to ban flexi pave or say it has to be used everywhere? Where I really feel someone who works on these kind of things during the day, it's case by case thing of, you know, where does it, you know, have a bang for the buck and where does it not? Looking at durability and where and different conditions as well. Like you got to drive over it at some spots. So are you talking about doing it for driveway aprons, or are you doing that as concrete? Or are you mixing in
No, you know that,
concrete?
you know that Jason said no. The aprons would be concrete.
Okay, so then you have the other material in between. So you could try to make it match, or it could look different. I personally don't think it would be the end of the world if it's a little bit different and choppy, but I've also don't see where it's really going to make much difference on stormwater for us in two of the spots. I think maybe the one down by the tennis court could, but all of these spots, my understanding is it's not being talked about as being like a thick or a layer of the flexi pave or whatever that porous material is, plus like a porous stone base below that, where you would have a foot or 1.5 inch section where all that water would be able to go through it and go into that stone base below. It sounds like we're talking about just putting it on regular stone, which would really make it act basically the same as the soil that's next to it. So I don't know where the water is really going to go into it. So I think it kind of boils down to a lot of it's really just if there's a strong preference for doing it just because of the way it looks or feels, I think that would be the reason to do it. But I'm not sure there's any real like kind of sustainability upside for us to do it. And I think it costs more over the long term too, because it's not gonna last as long as concrete. I would venture a guess that it's about half as long. So you really would have to replace it at least once in the same time that you would have the concrete. So it ends up costing more over time. So
To clarify one quick point, and then Donna, I'll let you go, but it's not an all or nothing. I'm only talking about 2 projects.
actually, not talking about the third one even.
No, I'm not even talking about the third one, because the third one I'll bring up in a minute, but
Okay.
which is a totally different kettle of fish. I just wanted to talk about these 2 because these 2 are kind of getting close to where we might be able to start doing something. The third one's different. So I just was narrowing to 2 projects. So, okay, Donna, sorry.
Thank you. No, not at all. Appreciate it. I think it does have more to do than just aesthetics. It is, we're Garrett Park, we're concerned with conservation, ecology, and just making the world better, not only Garrett Park, obviously. I think the fact that it is a recycled material in and of itself is already a step in, a positive direction. That and the fact that the space that the sidewalk takes over, that the water is now floating through, actually is a considerable amount of footage, or even the acreage if you consider all the sidewalks that are in Garrett Park. So I would support it, is my point, for more reasons than just the aesthetic and or comfortable walking nature of it.
Well, my point with the that it's about the aesthetic is that from what I understand of it, and I work in this industry and work in sustainability, and I'm a lead accredited professional. I don't understand where the water really goes. It just goes. It's either going to land next to it and sit on the soil and wait until it percolates down, or it's going to go through the flexi pave and hit the stone, which is about as porous as the soil next to it, and wait there to go down. It's not like it's really going anywhere. So where a lot of installations of this type of paving, whether it's a different brand or a different similar material, that's the whole point of it, is it kind of goes through that pavement and can be able to get somewhere else. That's not what we're really talking about here. And I appreciate the recycled content of it, but concrete is also available recycled. I don't think we'd really do it because it costs more for that. But then there's also the issue with the pervious materials. They do cost a lot more over the life cycle, so probably double. So I think I don't think that would be a backbreaking cost, but we need to probably acknowledge it would be like double, kind of over 50, 40 years, something like that. It would be about double as much cost.
With all due respect to the town and everybody in it, I think we also have the trees to consider, and at the end of the day, that may be a cost. It equals out in the end, in conservation as well as look as and ecology.
Yeah, the one I thought that matters the most for the trees is probably the other one that Phil was saying to discuss separately. I'm not so sure. There's some spots of Waverly that maybe helps down at the bottom, but I think most of Oxford, it's really not. I don't think it's going to make much of a change or for the kind of sidewalk construction we had with where you have root bridges over things with sand to be able to kind of allow the trees to breathe. I'm not sure it's
Well, maybe it's
enough of a benefit.
I don't understand what the flexi pave is in that case, because I would think that if the water is going on the path on dirt next to the sidewalk as well as through the sidewalk, that space that would be under the sidewalk, if it was concrete, never would have anything to absorb, as opposed to the flexi pave. Well, now it does, and therefore I was just saying that's a lot of space that water can go through that it wouldn't otherwise.
It doesn't go through the flexi pave base layer though, really any different than this one next to it. That's the point. So it doesn't keep filtering down in the ground. It kind of goes down there and waits there.
Right, but otherwise it wouldn't even go through that.
Yeah, it would just go off to the side and it just adds a portion to the water. It would be resting there. So like in the case of Oxford, it's not a lot. In proportion, it's not a lot. So in the case of like Oxford, it's 4 feet times, I think 400, so like 1,600 feet. And if you take all the space of all those front yards and the space that's between the houses over there, it's probably 30 by 400 feet. So it's like a fraction of it. So I just don't know. It's gonna, in theory, this is helpful. And in a lot of cases, especially more urban cases where I originally saw it, DC does it a lot. And I originally used something like it. It was a different brand, but used it in New York City. A lot of the benefit for an area like that is you don't have a big yard or a tree strip next to it. You have just sidewalk and a house and a curb and a street. There's no other way to really get water into that area. So this one's just a little bit different than that. So it's not really the advertised or kind of trouble that system is usually trying to fix.
So Phil, one of the other reasons I was asking about the versions is because the town received the comment from Allison Pierce about the all stone version was what they opted for there at the nature sanctuary at Wood End, because the recycled tire component poses environmental hazards to streams and aquifers. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't inadvertently choose a version that, breaks up and adds debris to the waste, the stormwater.
Is there a study, Jerry Lee, that they could share with us on that? That's interesting.
I don't know. It was just the comment that was submitted when this on the listserv when this was early on. I mean, I think a lot of what's been said today, we don't actually have data to support it. So I'm very uncomfortable with the whole conversation, to be honest.
Well, if my end goal here was that if there was a specific objection to us using flexi pave, then I would say we would just prepare everything using concrete. But if not, then I think we should go, as part of the documentation, we should have our civil engineer prepare a set of documents that would also allow for the use of flexi pave, so that we could, at some point when we go out for bid, we could do either way.
No, the decision today is whether or not you go with concrete or something else, and whether we're sticking with the existing routes of the existing sidewalks.
Well,
Because once we get that decision, we're going to have the civil engineer draw them up and put them in a bid document. So we can get the thing put out for bid. We can then receive the proposals, vet them, and be able to hopefully make some kind of an award so that we are on the manifest for contractors' work in the spring. We don't want to wait till the spring because the contractors will have already got their schedule of work. They're looking for work now for the spring. So this is why we're doing it now. It's the same thing we did with SRTS. We don't
understood.
want to wait till
Yeah.
the spring.
There's more to this project than that, though. Like, has the
No,
engineer
there
even
isn't.
looked?
There really isn't. To me, it's the town's responsibility and it's the town office's responsibility in operations to maintain sidewalks and streets. And all we're trying to do right now is fix existing sidewalks. And it's to keep the same routes as they are, as the current asphalt ones are, and use concrete unless you want to change the route. And the only route we've ever discussed is maybe putting the sidewalk up by Oxford and Kenilworth along the curb of Oxford. And that was pretty much kind of shot down by the civil engineer.
Right, but we did also move the sidewalk slightly, even with it, even when we decided, when we talked about putting it up against the street, which we've decided we're not going to do because we know that we've been advised against that. We still talked about moving the sidewalk slightly towards the street to give the people who have the house on the corner of Kenilworth and Oxford a little more
Mhm.
room to the side of their house. So it wouldn't be
Yeah.
exactly where it was, but it would
No.
be.
It's
close.
just a few, yeah, it's just a few feet up
A
by
foot
that
or-
corner.
Yeah,
It's
just
just
a
up
foot or
by the
two.
corner. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not too much.
But
I'd suggested looking at flipping the sidewalk at the house on the other side of the tree, as long as you can maintain a buffer to it and not have to go all the way to the curb, because I think it's one of the few spots in town, if not the only one, where that sidewalk actually goes out of the town right away a little bit, right where it is, just by like a foot or so. But if we can get it out totally into the town right away, and ideally get it on the flip side of the tree, I think that would be good. Just to add a little bit more privacy and get the pedestrians a little bit further away from the house,
right.
but not far enough where we'd risk being too close to the curb, because I think none of us want to do the adjoined curb at this point.
Mhm. Okay.
But
I can tell Jason to do that.
And I think the Waverly, I don't think we've had any reason to do anything different except for replacing it where it is. But where I was going with before, there's more to this project than those kind of things. Like that area is a hill, it goes all the way downhill, and I haven't seen it personally, but I can't imagine the water does anything else except for run down the bottom and then puddle until it goes over top of the curb and goes out to I don't know what all the conditions down there are, but it's typical for a project like this to account for those kind of things. I don't know whether it would warrant putting a swale into the bottom to try to put in some bioretention to kind of capture some of that water, or to try to raise the sidewalk and lead it out to flow over the curb and into the drain. But I mean, that's just like basic engineering stuff of a typical project
Well,
like
you
this.
trust, yeah, you don't trust the engineer. The civil engineer can
I
take
didn't
that into
say that, but
account.
I'm really tired
All
of
right.
hearing this being pressured.
But we
Like,
also,
you gotta say it's all
No.
flexi pave or none, and that's what the whole point of this thing is.
no,
And I
you
don't
know
think
what?
that's
I'm
appropriate.
sorry.
So-
It's our job we want to repair the sidewalks. We're not putting in new sidewalks. We're replacing the existing ones. So to the best that we
And
can,
fine, just
we're
do it all
using the
concrete then.
same. Yes, fine.
Okay,
That's
that's fine.
fine, Stephen.
Because I haven't
Because
really
we
heard
have
of those.
asphalt where water runs down the asphalt too.
Yeah,
I
it's
haven't
gonna run
seen
down the
any
flex-
swale, and
gonna
I
run
haven't seen
down-
any. Right. So I'm not even
Just-
arguing about that. I'm not. I'm just
It-
talking about the route
Yeah.
and the material. And if you all want concrete, I'm going to ask Jason to write it up that way.
Okay, I'm tired of talking about it. I'm fine for concrete.
So
And
am
it's gonna roll
I.
down. It's gonna roll down the hill no matter what material you put
Of
out there.
course. I don't. Yeah. So
Flexi pave or anything. So
I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm advocating for you all
we've
to
been
make a
advocating
decision.
for 3 years to push the flexi pave. So
Yeah. Well, I'm in the
3.5.
arboretum. I'm with the arboretum mentality. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, if you don't like
Okay.
flexi pave, then
But,
Yeah.
no, okay, so basically what we've got down to is we're gonna use the existing route for both of them, except for the fact we're gonna move the sidewalk slightly to give some
To make
people
sure it stays in the right of way, yeah, up there
space
and
right away,
curves a
some
little.
people some
Yeah.
room to their house.
Okay.
And Waverly will do, pretty much the same spot where it is now, and we're gonna do concrete for all of it. And that should be it for those two. Did you have something, Jerry, or?
I just wanted to ask for a proviso, since the Arboretum Committee's comments did express concern about narrowing the planting strip, that as you adjust that alignment, that you consult with the town's consulting arborist to make sure that it isn't detrimental.
Agreed.
Okay.
For sure. Now, the other project was going to be the piece that runs along Waverly from Montrose down to Penn Place. And for that one, I think that we're gonna need some money for engineering, and we're probably gonna need money for a topo survey, because as has been pointed out in the past, that whole sidewalk is gonna need something different. We're gonna have to, do something because it's somewhat elevated on one side. It's going to be, its drainage would probably be a little different. We may have to put a railing in on it. I'm not really sure what we're gonna have to do to deal with that particular piece. And I will also throw out there that it's fairly dark in that area, and we might want to consider, if we're redoing the sidewalk, putting in some low-flying, somewhat unobtrusive lighting to help guide people down that path, because there really is not much light there. So what I'm really looking for is that we see about getting some engineering, some estimates for the engineering to go in and look at that piece, and then for the topo survey, which will probably be required because it's on a hill.
I think they have some topo, but I think they need like the profiles of it. They need more information for something that's that complex, but
yeah, whatever. I agree.
Yeah, the lighting
The way
sounds great.
Yeah, I like the lighting idea because it's very dark. The way Jason left it to me, he said it to me, when I kept bringing up the point of the slope, and not sure that just plantings would be sufficient. He made it sound that it would be up to the contractor to provide some recommendations on how to treat that slope, whether it is with fencing, whether it's with backfill fencing and retaining wall or what have you. So, that was his take.
But
All I can tell you.
Surprised he would say the contractor should decide that. Usually it's an
Well, no, it
engineer and-
wouldn't be just by their LOSUM. They would be recommending.
Okay.
But the engineer wouldn't actually draw up a drawing, because how
I asked that, and he, I'll certainly go back, Phil, because I was very specific about it, and that was what he told me. But I can certainly go back and say we really need to see something more than just plantings, because all he's put in were plantings, and I said we didn't think that was sufficient. But he made it, he said, well, the contractor may have some other recommendations. So I'm not sure, whether that would come out at a pre-construction meeting, a pre-award kind of thing or not. But I'll ask him.
Because the other part comes, how do you budget for it? If the contractor, if I were the contractor, frankly, I'd tell you, yeah, you need a fence along the thing, because I don't want to be sued for it. But
yeah, right. And then you'd end up, you end up with a mod if we don't have enough money, right?
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that where a contractor would decide retention or.
They're not deciding. They're not deciding. They'd be recommending. That was what Jason said.
Yeah, never heard it either way. But I still recommend the same thing I've been recommending for a long time. It should be more than just the engineer's design. It should really be, it's the edge of a park. It's also a sidewalk, and it's sunk like over a foot. I think it should be thoroughly designed, including a landscape architect, to kind of make something that really looks good. Work in that lighting, and then figure out when maybe that sidewalk needs to be raised up a foot. Maybe it makes sense to connect it with the roadway, so you can, instead of getting out of your car in the dark, step over a curb, step across a bunch of roots, and then go downhill and get on the sidewalk. You might have something that's a little bit more level, which leads it to be, that might be the kind of thing where you end up stabilizing that that hillside, you end up putting stone on top, and you end up putting a pervious material on the top of that, and then seeing if that maybe is the best solution for it overall. Maybe it looks a lot better and performs a lot better for what's really like one of the few spots in town that visitors come to, instead of just replacing it the way it was. So
Yeah,
I think it's a good investment to do something that's going to be there for 40 years or more. So
agreed. And that's kind of what I was looking for, was that we would, I mean, we would end up, I would assume we would, our civil engineer would be the one working, heading up that project, including the landscape architecture.
yeah, usually they can get them as a landscape architect as a sub-consultant to them. And like some firms, I don't think Clark Azar does it, but some firms have both in-house. But I think they would just, if asked, they would
Clark-
just hire a consultant to do it and then report it all together. So
That's what Clark Azar used for the SRTS. They subcontracted to a landscape architect.
That's what I was looking for, is to basically see if we couldn't get some information so we could then come back with the estimate as to what the engineering would cost, so we could put it on the table.
Okay, I'll ask him.
Thanks. That was it.
In the
for me.
meantime, I'm going to have him draw up the other two.
Yes, yes.
And if, I don't know whether we have to go out with a separate bid or not. We got to keep this thing moving, or we're not going to get anything done.
Bill, were there any questions at issue on Oxford, or was it just Waverly you were asking about today?
It was, well, we talked about both of them really. So, and the main one that I had was the second Waverly between Montrose down to Penn Place was what we were just finished talking about. That's where I was trying to get some discussion there. The other two sidewalks, I believe, we're basically done with. We're going to use the same route. We're going to use concrete, and that was it. I think I answered your question.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Okay, that's it
Okay.
for me on.
All
super
right, and
quick
you're up.
question. Is the sidewalk on Oxford on the school side, is that still staying in? They were doing a repair at the corner there.
They're not doing the sidewalk down Oxford towards the school anyway. They were just going to repair that corner.
The corner, that's what I thought, yeah.
Corner.
Yeah.
So that one actually could be another good candidate for a pervious material if it helps them there. Like, I wouldn't want to rule it out, but I just wasn't seeing any upside to saying it should be everywhere. So
All right, can we move on to stormwater? Bill,
Stormwater.
it's
so
10:20.
I'll try and make it quick. So stormwater, it looks like we may be getting done with, from what I understand, we may be getting done this week with the phase 2 portion for the rechanneling and redo of the stream bed, going down to the overpass or the bike path, culvert, whatever you want to call it. So that would leave us with phase 3, which is going to be, what do we do about that overpass or culvert or bike path? There's been a couple suggestions on that. And that kind of ties back with the whole discussion regarding the county. And we still need to basically find out from the county where they stand on this. And if it's okay to use our money, but we're going to turn over ownership to them. And that's probably the biggest question, because expediency wise, I'm going to guess the county won't move on doing anything anytime soon, but we could use some of our ARPA funds to finish phase 3. We just need to make sure the county agrees that we just turn over the keys to them, and it's up to them to maintain it from that point forward. And then of course, I know we're still working on stuff, John Osick's looking at some things, and we still need to work as far as that thing goes, the problems that we're having over there. Again, I think it's a big part of it's going to hinge on the county and what's going on with the county, and can we, if we decide to do the work, but then turn over the ownership and the keys to the county for them to maintain it. So that's where we are in stormwater stuff.
All right.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry. Phil, Is it an option for the county not to take the keys and take it over?
From what I've seen, from what I've heard from Andrea, and Andrea can probably answer it better, but yeah, I suppose they could, because there have been cases in some places, and we actually had even written it in a letter that we were sending to them to say that we may opt to not give them the keys to maintain it ourselves. So I suppose they could do the same thing back to us and say, well, you built it, so since you guys built it, even if we did approve it, we're still don't want to maintain it.
Well, plus we're paying taxes on it is really what I was kind of going for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if that,
We're paying for it. We have been for a while. They owe us as far as I'm concerned.
exactly. And that's where this is all coming from. So yes, I suppose it's possible they could deny it, but it's doubtful. But it's a good thing to figure out before we get started.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Phil. Jerry Lee, you want to give us some update about the St. Angela Hall redevelopment?
Thank
3
you.
minutes. Try to keep it brief. We're going to try to keep this brief, everybody, because it's
Sure.
10:23.
So the hearings are now scheduled and posted on the county's websites for zoning and hearing. The planning board hearing is the morning of November 18th, and the zoning with the hearing examiner is November 29th. We have a draft testimony that the mayor has reviewed and our committee has reviewed. Very quickly, the positions we're proposing to take in our testimony are that the town recommends the county not approve the local map amendment for this development as currently proposed. The key points for that being the current design is very automobile oriented. For example, the sidewalks or the driveways for the townhomes are long and wide for additional cars. Concerns about the reliability of the traffic study that was done during COVID. Recommending consolidation of the entrance and exits, that 3 entrance and exits are too many, but also at the same time proposing that they look for a feasible exit, if at a minimum, for Holy Cross School on the backside out onto Tuckerman, and definitely a pedestrian path directly out to Tuckerman to promote more transit orientation. Additionally, recommending that the main entrance be at Stillwater Avenue aligned, and that the proposed light be aligned at Stillwater Avenue to benefit the whole community. Recommending that there not be parking lots and loading docks fronting Strathmore Avenue, that those be put behind the large care building. And noting the concerns about school crowding, and noting concerns about adequate recreational space. So assuming if anybody has any other concerns they want us to include in the testimony, please send me an email. Any questions?
Thanks very much for drafting that, Jerry Lee. I really appreciate it. And for you leading the effort and being on that town hall meeting the other day.
Yeah, it was great that Garrett Park Estates and White Flint Park held that meeting. Got a lot of good community input. There were a lot of Garrett Park residents on that call as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay. Mario, can you give us an update on archives?
Yeah, it'll be quick. Just real quick. There's Claire McDonald's always sends me such great information, but I'll just be super quick. Just the most important thing is she's working in conjunction with the Historic Preservation Society on, there's going to be a new exhibit in Penn Place on the mid-century work of the architect Alexander Richter, who I think a lot of us probably know because a lot of his stuff is very familiar to us. So that'll be in display in Penn Place soon. I don't think it's up yet. That'll probably run through the end of December. I'll leave it at that for now. And she's a lot more stuff going on in her world. She's wonderful, archiving a lot of work. People have been sending a lot of information to her, but for the sake of time, no offense,
Okay.
Claire, cut it.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Mario.
Great job.
Okay. Oh, good. I've been over there, so thank you, Phil.
Donna and Phil, do you want to talk about the Black Market outdoor dining? I'll leave it to you two to decide who to go.
Phil, you have seniority.
So in brief, we've all agreed that basically January 1st or 2nd, depending on when they can pick up the barriers that
Or
the,
December 31st.
or December 31st, one of those three. When they can pick up the barriers, that's the end of the road blockage. That's done. But the task force still has a need. We still have a need for a task force, and that is to investigate any possibilities of other options for expanding outdoor dining beyond the existing porch, but not using the street. So the thought was, could we do something? If so, what might it look like? Would it have problems with historic preservation or what? And how big might it be? But it'd all be just an investigation, some recommendations as to if we could do something, what it might look like, maybe some options. And we want to involve the residents who are in the area there, get their opinions along with Black Market, see if there's something that'd be workable that doesn't involve using the street and doesn't inconvenience everybody in the process. And it's basically just a exploration to see if there's something that could be done to expand outdoor dining at some point in the future and what that may or may not even look like. Other than that, we know that end of the year, street's going to be reopened. It's just a matter of when they come to pick up the barriers, 31st, obviously not the 1st or the 2nd, something to that effect.
Okay. And who's leading the task force?
I don't know, Don and I can discuss, figure out we want to do that.
Well, who's got the lead for Penn Place? Is that Stephen or is that Phil?
And Phil,
Okay, Phil.
I'm happy to
'Cause
join
this-
this. But
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not in lead on it.
yeah, I'll be happy to have you.
Well, we need some focus on the town hall. So
Yeah, I'll do both.
if you got spare time, let's put it there. What were you gonna say, Donna?
You have the expertise in the town hall, and I've got the funds. Well, we've got the funds. We will
Yeah.
find them. One thought that I tried to get across during our last council meeting, and I think in the heat of the moment, perhaps it was lost to that discussion. And that is my concern about, and a number of townspeople concern about waiting until the end of the year, to be quite frank. Because December is the holiday season, and that post office is hopping. I remember last year during COVID, there was a line out the door, and it was when people could,
Had to be 6 feet and there was
Yeah,
restrictions
exactly.
on
and
numbers in the
it was
post
just ridiculous and inconvenient and just nerve wracking. And I'm wondering also, with the weather being what it is in December, it's usually hit or miss, but regardless, it's cold and not necessarily eating outdoors weather. And what is the possibility and or option of diverting those barriers sooner than the end of December? It might not be a popular thought, but it will inconvenience more people than it normally does during the holiday season, to be honest.
Can I jump in on that? We had an agreement with the restaurant and with the barrier company that they would stay there through the end of December. And because of that, the restaurant did invest some money to upgrade the aesthetic, the looks there, right? For 4 different things that are on the patio, and the barriers essentially are paid for through December. So there's those 2 things to also consider as a piece of this.
Thank you, Andrea, and I know that because you did mention, I remember you saying that last time, but I'm just thinking 1 month of, I don't know how much the barriers cost, but a month less of that traffic jam. Today, in and of it, I was there for in front of the post office, and I saw at least two people in the 15-minute time frame go the wrong direction up that hill.
Oh,
So I can just imagine the craziness that's going to go on later on. And I'm really concerned by this. And I know other people in town are as well. And I don't think the cost of the barriers for 1 month should be something that would be something that we should be too concerned about. To be
I have the
honest.
name of a traffic engineer that, the town could call if we wanted more sort of professional advice. I got a name from Jason for a traffic engineer. But just again, that we made a commitment to the restaurant that would be there through the end of December. So they've taken reservations, they've purchased new things to go up there. So just wanting to mention that as
Yeah.
another sort of piece here that we committed to that.
Donna, I would have gotten rid of the stuff 6 months ago, but we did give them our word that we would stay up to the end of the year, and I, for one, can't get back on my word on that. So, just
Okay. It was
trust
just
me.
not.
Trust me. I would like to get rid of it.
It was not taken into consideration last time we spoke.
No.
There was a lot of,
Yeah.
it was a heated discussion, and
Yeah,
that was the last thing I know. We're obviously.
I agree. I agree. I agree, Donna. I did not. I totally agree. I did not like the direction that conversation went at all. For a lot of reasons, but I do, and I've talked to Warren and I've talked to the Lydens, and no one's happy about it at the end of the year. I mean, we can vote on it, and but we did give the restaurant our word that we would keep open. So I'm a man of my word. So that's kind of my position on that.
Yeah, I agree with Mario on that. But to address the comment in the chat, I do think that the town could provide perhaps additional signage to make it clear, for example, that, to get to the address on the other side of the train parking lot, that you have to go around Penn Place or something like that. So I would just ask that the town office look at what additional temporary signage we could put up to improve the situation for the neighbors.
No, I know what you're saying, Jerry Lee, but just like I said, just from the experience today, that sign that says "Do not enter" is massive. It's the size of half of a small car. And another lady was at the top of the hill asking passersby, "Can I go down here?" Because obviously, I don't know whether the signage wasn't big enough for her or what have you, but it's still
Get stuck. Yeah.
She was totally stuck. And as you can see in this, the note in the chat, I'm not surprised. I'm totally not surprised. It's just inconvenient for people to go.
It is. It's terrible. It's Donna, I agree with you 100%. It's, my position is terrible. I've spoke up against it many times. I agree with you. I don't know. I mean, unless there's a majority that wants to go against it and change the rule, then we can shut down December 1st. But otherwise,
well, if that's the case, maybe it's just something we should consider. I mean, who knows? If there's a snowstorm for all of December, what's the point? If you don't mind saying.
I think, Donna, you raised a great point. I wonder, maybe it's a little bit too much of try to find a way and be optimistic in me, but wonder if there's a way, kind of explore your idea and then see if it's got any legs, combined with what Andrea was saying, if we have access to talk to a traffic engineer to see, maybe there's a way to kind of do both. Maybe stick to the agreement that the restaurant can keep the street, but maybe don't need to keep all of it. If a traffic engineer can determine it, maybe you can make it go a one lane through there, so you could go down and go right, and then down around by the maintenance shed and come back up to go to the parking lot, but you'd be able to come back out through adjacent to the dining, like make it one lane instead of two. I don't know whether a traffic engineer would deem that to be safe and or not, but maybe worth asking it, because it might be a compromise.
I hate to be like ask a stupid question, but I'm sure they're not light, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If those barriers are movable, how movable are they? Because it may be that, I mean, I'm sure all of you have gone, during a regular Monday afternoon and seen absolutely nobody out there and wondered what the, why. So are they movable? Do they have to be there out all the time? Or can they be tucked away if you, for lack of a better way of saying it?
A lot of logistics probably to move them back and forth multiple times a week.
I don't think it's reasonable to move them regularly. There's 750 pounds and they're filled with water, and then it would have to be refilled. And then because it's winter, there's an additive they have to put in there also to keep it from freezing. So it's,
Like I said, I don't know. I was just
Yeah.
asking.
Got the tents you gotta move, plus all the tables.
Well,
I
that's
mean, we're
Oh.
neither here nor there. on
I-
us.
I think this has been a great suggestion and a concern, Donna, that you raised, and Stephen, the compromise. If we can get signage, that maybe we can get a sign, Andrea, that just says Rokeby with an arrow pointing down where it says detour. We can include a sign that says Rokeby to Rokeby that way. As far as getting it one way, we've thought about this before. I think it would be great. I'm just not sure that there's even really
Fine.
time, because
Fine.
by the time we get it done, we're going to be in the month of December.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's a possibility. I think maybe we
You
can
need
look
to
into
sign that
that.
says, you need to sign that says exit to Strathmore, is what you need, and keep following those signs around, because people don't
Yeah,
know how
but
to.
we
Hmm.
also have somebody on Rokeby who isn't always getting their packages because they don't know how to get there
Yeah.
from up
Actually,
on
the
top.
Kensington Fire Department got stuck.
Yeah, no, look, we know that the road's going away, and Don, trust me, I don't know, I just,
So anyway, if
Oh,
we can get the signage, I think we can get the signage. If we can get maybe a traffic engineer out sooner, like in the next couple of weeks, who could look at it and give us a proposal, and then maybe we could bring it back so that we at least open a one-way lane. That would help during the holiday, but for sure, everything goes away December 31st.
right, but just to be clear, I mean, Jerry Lee and Phil and Steven, I mean, if you guys feel that we can shut it down sooner, we can vote on it. I mean, I'm just one voice. I mean, I want to get rid of it. I just don't want to be the person that said, yeah, we'll keep it open until January 1st or December 31st, and then say no. Although to your point,
Yeah.
Don, I mean, although the weather's been, I mean, it's like springtime outside, but eventually it will become winter. So
Yeah, it's a lot of space to fill up with space heaters. It might actually help them to kind of condense it if it is viable
if you
from a
can get a
traffic.
person,
Yeah,
if Andrew, if someone get out there, we can cut it down to one lane and chop their. They don't need all those outdoor spaces. And great, let's do it. I mean,
move it. Yeah.
They've already put up tents and stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to defend them one way or the other, but
Yeah, they're all new. Yep.
well, they're like a doll. What's the expression? They're a little late on that game, Phil. I mean, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care about that stupid tents. They created a mishmash for 18 months out there, so I have no sympathy for the tents.
But even with that, what I saw last week, it looks like they probably could take the space that is under tent and just like move it over, kind of
Mhm.
like tighten it up a little bit and get
Totally.
plenty of seats out there and then get that loop around. But again, it's all just pending on if a traffic engineer tells you it's just too much liability or if it's a acceptable liability or acceptable situation.
Okay, that's our marching orders. Okay, that's what
Yeah.
we'll do. All right.
Great.
Okay, thanks. And now, Andrea, for your last and your final financial report and town manager's report.
There you go. October revenues, operations, and capital budgets are at expected levels, and total revenues and expenses are within projections. There was only one building permit issued to 10705 Weymouth for a replacement deck. Town office maintenance and highlights. There's various things that have been done. You can read about it in the report. Somebody say something, or is that just feedback? Must have been feedback. Okay. And then just the last bullet there, just reminding folks ways to stay informed for residents that may not already be receiving either website notifications or on GPML or the town forum listservs, just to please contact Elizabeth to do that. And then lastly, just thanking everybody for my time here, that I appreciate, having the chance to serve as your town manager. And I appreciate all the folks that I've gotten to work alongside, and I'm proud of the things that we were able to accomplish. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
We're going to miss you, Andrea.
We are.
Same.
Appreciate all the work you've done for us. All right, it is 10:41, and without further ado, I am going to adjourn the meeting.
Mario's gonna
Have a,
stretch.
have a good night, everybody.